The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon, you live from many places around the country. You can't see it right now, but we have Dr. Doreen Marathon with us. She is on the phone long distance from parts elsewhere, but we're thrilled to have her with us this morning. And she's going to be answering your questions in real time because it's Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we, whenever possible, feature Ask Dr. Doreen. Now, sometimes she's too far away and we can't have her, but we're trying really hard to have her, even though she's very far away this morning. And it's been one of those crazy mornings, and we tried very diligently to be able to get picture and sound, but we've got her in voice. So good morning, Dr. Grampiche.
Good morning, Shannon, and hi, everyone. And I am so sorry that I can't be with you in person or on video, but at least I am able to use my cell phone and I hear you perfectly, and hopefully I can answer questions.
Wonderful. So want to remind everybody that this is a perfect time. We like to say that this show, our favorite thing is interactive, because it is. And there are many different ways that you can be interacting. Right now we're live on a bunch of different platforms, but the big four that I always like to remind you are YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope. So if you are on one of those four platforms right now, all you have to do is comment on that platform and it aggregates right here for us. And I'm able to see your questions and relay them to Dr. Grampiche. So we want to encourage you to utilize that. If there are many other places that we are live right now, it takes, like Traven is showing them to you on the screen right now, Africa, Vaughn Live, many other places. You can leave messages there. It takes a little bit longer. You're much more likely to get your question answered live if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Periscope. But I also want to remind you that we podcast this show to many different places. In fact, any place that you get your podcast, likely we are there. And we are a free download. And on many of them, you can choose. Do you want just sound or picture and sound? For instance, on iTunes, you get to choose. So if you're watching or listening after the fact and you have a question, please feel free to write that in on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. We're saying good morning to Amanda, who's sending us her signature blue hearts this morning. Thank you for being with us, Amanda. We love it when you're here. And see, it's as easy as that, you guys. Go ahead and write in. You can get a shout out from me, and better yet, have your question answered by Dr. Doreen Grampiche. I also want to remind you that all of our shows are archived on our YouTube page and on our homepage. So if you want to go back in time and see, for instance, you're like, well, I've got an issue with bedwetting. And so you could go to our homepage or go to our YouTube page and put that in the keyword search and see all the interviews that we've done over the last 10 years about that subject, or you can put in a person if you want to search. It's such a huge library that I will be honest with you and tell you that it's not perfect, although we get it better all the time and put in keywords, hopefully looking for, putting in what you guys are looking for. But there is a vast library of videos. Anything you want information about is available there. But as I said, one of our favorite segments is Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grampiche is a true expert in the field of autism. She is, I think it's spooky. I think she can see around corners but I think that part of it is she's just a really intelligent, compassionate expert who's been doing this for way longer than I think she should admit to, because no one would know. She looks like she's in her early 20s. And when she tells you that she's been doing this for 40 years, you go, that just doesn't add up. But she's a true expert in this field, and we're so lucky to have her with us this morning answering questions. And so the other thing I left out is that we do like to give the disclaimer at the start of the show that even though Dr. Granpeesheh, I believe, is the preeminent expert in the field of autism in this time, there is no expert in this field or any field who could give individual specific advice in this format. So we just have to understand that and know that when you guys ask a question, she's going to, ask you more questions. That's why I love this live feature. And she's going to give you information that then you're going to take to your home experts who have eyes on the individual, eyes on you, and you'll get further because you'll know what questions to ask. Okay, so in fact, somebody has just written in, Dr. Granpeesheh, and said, I'm having a hard time getting my 2-year-old evaluated. Can you give me any advice, please? This is a very hard thing in COVID, getting an evaluation. Yeah.
It really is. And I guess the answer, Shannon, is first I have to ask where you are. And what type of evaluation are you talking about? Are you seeing symptoms or things that are concerning to you and you'd really want to kind of get someone who can give you a diagnosis? Or do you already have that and you're sort of wondering what to do next? And also, where are you? Because, it's different state by state.
Yeah, and country by country. So Sam Rawit on YouTube, she says, I live in Virginia.
Oh, okay. Well, so have you, there's, and again, if you want to get a diagnostic evaluation, I think you need to try to contact your insurance company and get with a psychologist or a developmental pediatrician, a psychiatrist, a neurologist. Those are the 4 main professions that can help you out. Now, I happen to have a whole ton of psychology licenses in different states, and one of the states is Virginia. So I could help you, but the only way I can help you is to do a Zoom type of meeting with you and, kind of guide you. They don't really like it if we do a full diagnosis via Zoom, but I'd be happy to get together with you on Zoom and see your child and try to figure out what we need to do for you. And also, CARD has a lot of centers in Virginia, so if the diagnosis ends up being ASD, then certainly we can help you with treatment as well.
Okay, and she wrote back in and said 2 things, that there's a long waiting line in her state, but she said she would love to, she said, I would love that, please, getting together with you via Zoom. So the next step and I think you're going to now be inundated, Dr. Granpeesheh. They said, wow, a Zoom. Somebody else said, wow, a Zoom with Dr. Granpeesheh. And they said, lucky. I'm with them on that. I consider myself lucky every week that I get to be here with you. But so do they write to me to hook that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Shannon, if you don't mind just getting their information, and then I can pass it on to Sarah and she can organize that for me.
Yes.
And, I want our viewers to know, honestly, one of my, I don't want to say favorites because it's never lots of fun to sit down and diagnose a child, but I do love having contacts with the families and with the children, and I am licensed in a lot of different states, and part of the reason that I became licensed in a lot of different states is that there are waiting lists for assessment and diagnosis, and that just disturbs me so much. That you feel, as a parent, you feel like there's something going on with my child and you can't get in to see someone to help you understand what it is and to just move forward. So, I have actually been thinking about how I can try to help more families in all of the states where I am licensed, at least just with the initial assessment portion. So I'm learning more about what we're allowed to do via telehealth. And honestly, if I am allowed to diagnose via telehealth, then I'm going to open the doors to, I think I'm licensed in 10 or 12 states. And I'm just going to start doing that because there's such a huge need out there.
There absolutely is. And I think everybody will be very grateful. Those who are watching live just saw me completely panic because while you were talking, my phone, which you're speaking through, said it wasn't charging. It did that low battery noise that
oh, sure.
And I was like, what's happening? Because it had come unplugged. It was plugged in, but it had come unplugged. So I'm just letting everybody know, you saw the look of panic and me jumping out of my seat and running around like a crazy person. We are now charging. We're not going to lose Dr. Granpeesheh because that would have been horrible. So what I did was I put in my email. Traven's got it on the screen. It's s.penrod@autism-live.com. And I also put it so you should be seeing it on all of the formats, the big four that we're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope. You should be able to see that right now. So just letting you guys know that. And what a great thing, Dr. Granpeesheh. I think there'd be I think people would line up, to be quite honest.
Well, and to be honest, Shannon, you know me, I love to be in contact and help families. So it would be a very positive experience for me as well.
There we go. Great. So write to me, and I will make sure that it gets forwarded to the right person. Mary wants to know, my great-grand twin girls were diagnosed with autism. Now they are 6 years old, and now they are no longer on the spectrum. I always thought that once on the spectrum, you never came off. Do you want to address that?
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. So, first of all, how wonderful for you. And, you know, like anything else, these disorders like autism are based on a series of symptoms that have to be present. So for autism, let's just talk about that for a minute. The symptoms are essentially in three different areas. You have to have some delays in the area of speech and language, and then you have to have some delays in social behavior, which typically, if you have a speech and language delay, you will have a social delay as well. And then the third area is this area called repetitive stereotypical behaviors. Typically with kids with autism, they develop these repetitive behaviors like lining up their toys or toe walking or turning the lights on and off, or there's a variety of them. And so if you have enough symptoms in those three areas, you receive a diagnosis, right? Now, over the course of treatment, which obviously the number one treatment that's also authorized and approved by the FDA is ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis. And Applied Behavior Analysis, what we are doing is we're kind of replacing these symptoms with more appropriate communication and appropriate social behavior. So whatever was missing, we're basically teaching. So yes, the whole goal of ABA is to remove the symptoms so that you lose the diagnosis. And, we're very fortunate in about half of our cases, we get the children young enough and we work hard enough. That means the intensity of the therapy is very high, like 40 hours a week for 2 to 3 years. And parents are involved and they get trained. And it's a very, very kind of intense effort for about 3 years. And when everything works, half of our children lose that diagnosis. So losing your diagnosis is not impossible by any means. In fact, it is our goal. And even for children who don't fully lose the diagnosis, they hopefully will learn through ABA and their symptoms will decrease, both in number and in intensity. And Shanna, you might want to talk about kind of how much of it takes a village it is for so many years.
Yeah, it's not a short sprint. And I love that for this grandma, that you've got twins that are 6 years old and are now no longer qualified for that diagnosis. But I want to say something, and I want your thoughts about it, Dr. Granpeesheh. What I'm fond of saying to people, because they'll say to me, I don't understand. I think those of you who watch the show know that I have a son that was diagnosed at 2.5. We were lucky because we got him started at CARD right after his 3rd birthday. And he did 5 years of therapy. And I would tell you that like 3.5 of them were intense, where we put a whole lot of other things on hold, and we worked with a team of people. And it was work. It was work for them. It was work for us. It was work for my son. CARD was amazing because they made sure, one of the basic tenets of ABA is that, there has to be reinforcers. And they made sure that he was having a good time during the work. But it was work. Let's not mince words. But, we're one of those lucky families that, I don't think anybody could at this moment in time look at my son and say that he has a disability.
That's right.
And that's amazing. And that is worth, if you have the opportunity to do this kind of intervention, it's I think one of the people on our team used to say to us, it's like having an Olympic athlete. You're going to go all in for a couple of years, knowing it's not forever, but you're going to go all in for a couple of years to set them up for success for the rest of their lives. You don't know if you're going to get to the Olympics. You don't know if you're going to win a gold medal, but you have to be willing to go all in. But what I say to people when they say, I don't understand, we thought that you were looking at this lifetime of having a child who was highly disabled. And what I say to people is, my son's brain still works really differently from mine. His brain is always going to work differently from mine, but we took hurdles out of his way. So now he gets to use that to his benefit.
That's right.
It's not that we changed who he was. I want to be really clear about that, because I know there's a lot of adults that are on the spectrum, self-advocates who are my friends and that I love, who will say, are you changing this person? And no, I feel like he was taught another language and that he can move very easily between all of the languages that he speaks now. And there's no disabling aspect, but his brain still works different. It just, I will tell you, I think quite honestly, his brain works better than mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I honestly agree with everything you said there, Shannon.
But the thing is that before, one of the things when I explain to kids, when I do talks to kids about autism, I always give the example about computers. There's a Mac and there's a PC. And, if you expect a Mac to do what a PC is, but you don't teach it to do it, and you don't give it plugins to help it to be able to do it, it's going to be frustrated and you're going to be frustrated. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. And what I saw is that ABA and CARD, oh my gosh, CARD, helped my son to be exactly who he is. They removed obstacles and they gave him plugins that were translators so that he knows how to do what he wants to do, but he is himself, and he's quirky and he's fun and he's hilarious and he's successful and he has friends. But he is still his own person. So
that's right. I mean, and Shannon, I love that example of the PC and Mac. But I mean, honestly, if you think about it as a parent, our children learn a lot of things, right? And at some point, as they're younger, we put them in a variety of classes. For example, swimming class, or we teach our kids how to swim. That doesn't mean from the moment we teach them how to swim, they don't walk anymore.
That's right.
They're just learning a new skill, right? Or kids who learn multiple languages. That doesn't mean they're forgetting their original language. They're just learning multiple languages. Or gym, or speech therapy, or whatever it is. And think about the number of hours. One of my friends, her child just has a really strong propensity for basketball, right? I'm telling you, or a lot of my friends, actually, their kids used to do soccer. And the amount of time we put into taking the child from one game to another and like traveling cities even and doing all this sort of stuff is similar in terms of the commitment you have to make to it. It's a few years. I love your example of, you're training an Olympic type athlete. And I don't, so it takes a commitment, right, from the parents as well as we're giving you a lot of help. Like there's a lot of people who are working on this with you. Now, and I just don't think of autism as a disability because truthfully, like you said, our kids, their brains work in a different way and a lot of times in a stronger way. Visual memory, much, much stronger than ours. Ability to memorize things as a whole. I mean, unbelievable strength. Some of our kids teach themselves reading at the age of 2 or 3, you know? So genius type skills, which are incredible and they're never lost and they will always be a strength that the individual holds. But if you just have those, you don't necessarily have functional adaptive skills that help you survive in society and life. And what we're trying to do is just give you some of those kind of functional adaptive skills that help you live in this society, right? With all the rules of society. But nevertheless, I love the fact that our kids have some amazing strengths, and I always encourage parents to build on those as well.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would say to the grandma with the 6-year-olds that no longer have a diagnosis, and I want to say, that's just so amazing. But somebody had written in and said it's amazing if a child is given the chance to reach their own full potential, but it's also a problem if you pull a child out prematurely. It's not a smart idea, parents, because symptoms can come back. So I agree that not only can some symptoms come back, but I also know that some of our kids, each time they crest another milestone in their growth, they have different challenges. So the kids at 6, the challenges that you're going to see that they're going to face other challenges when puberty hits, and just like our typical kids. And I think a lot of times that we go, oh, okay, we're totally done. But our kids, all of our kids, neurotypical or otherwise, need different things along the way. And I think that, to your point, Dr. Granpeesheh, what you were just saying about let's look at the individual and keep having them learn. And, my son, even though he finished his ABA program by the time he was 8, we continued to do other things and to build his social skills, to give him job skills. We didn't just go, okay, now we're done. We took what ABA and CARD taught us and we worked hard applying it to his everyday life. And when we saw something, we were like, okay, let's pull out our ABA toolkit and what can we do? We didn't rush him back into therapy, but we tried to say, we know what works with him to help him to learn a new skill. So how can we support that? And we're still doing that. I'm trying to get him ready to go to college. Absolutely. Somebody grab my head and hold on to it because it's about to pop off. But, right. But I think I have friends who have neurotypical kids and I have 2 classes of friends. I don't want to tell on anybody, but some of them are like, oh, my child is going to college in the fall, which means we're working on doing laundry right now. And they're very proactive about it. Right. And then I have other friends who, I don't know, it's like their kid turned 12 and they were like, I'm done parenting. Do you know what I mean? And then they're shocked when their kid doesn't know how to do something. And I'm like, well, did you expect them just like, if you're not teaching them, they're picking it up on the streets. And those are neurotypical kids. Yeah. So, we're never done.
I want to talk about that for a second, Shannon, because a lot of parents, especially when we are doing pretty well or at any point in the program, they're worried that that literally symptoms come back. And I want to kind of break that apart a little bit because I truly don't think symptoms come back. Once a child has learned something, they've learned it. It's not like they're going to, in the vast majority of cases, when it is learned and maintained, so mastered in the generalized environment, it's not like you lose skills. What does come back is frustration because there are new demands in your life and you haven't mastered those. So you gave a great example of that, which is, when you're 6 years old, you don't, a skill of doing laundry is not something that you're expected to do. But maybe when you're 15, it is expected. So it's a new skill, right? Just like a 2-year-old is not going to be tying their own shoes, but maybe a 5 or 6-year-old is, or biking, or whatever it is. So there will be different skills. And if you don't know those, you might express frustration over them again. But I want everyone to remember that the challenging behaviors that we see in our kids are not part of the diagnosis, right? They're not symptoms of autism. They're simply symptoms of frustration. So obviously as the child ages, there are new skills that we need to teach, because it is likely that the child will hit other walls or obstacles or experiences, and they're just like we all do, where we get frustrated over and over until we learn. But symptoms in terms of like you teach a child a certain language skill or a certain social skill, they're not going to lose those skills that they mastered. That's kind of an important thing, because I know a lot of parents worry, especially those of recovered children. They often ask me they're worried about discontinuing services because they're worried that things will fall apart again. And I'm like, no, they're not going to fall apart. We're always here to help guide you, but it's not like your child is going to lose what they learned. Now, you might remove all the rules and then the child might be kind of acting out again. But those are not symptoms of autism.
It's interesting you should say that, because I think, more and more of us have kiddos that, because as you talk about it here all the time, kids present in different ways and have different types of autism. But a lot of us have kids who regressed into autism, that they had some level of skill, they were talking, and then that went away. And I know for me, man, I spent at least 4 of the 5 years doing ABA being panicked, so afraid, because my child had been talking in full sentences. And it wasn't like he stopped doing it overnight. He stopped doing it very slowly. And so anytime, let's say that a skill was mastered, but it hadn't quite generalized yet, and then we didn't do it as much, and then we would come back to it and his skill level had slipped, I would panic. I still, to this day, and my son is doing so wonderfully, I mean, like off the chart wonderful. And I still, to this day, am terrified that like we could lose it because of how it was like watching a car accident in slow motion as I watched my child slip away. So I love hearing from you, that it's not going to go away.
No, absolutely. And I thank you for that explanation, because it makes sense to me, if I saw my child lose skills, which many parents have sort of regressive autism, so many parents have experienced that, it would be a very frightening thing. But it truly is not necessarily, it's kind of like you talked about learning how to bike, for example. Mm-hmm. If you just go out and the very first time, you're biking on your own without training wheels, and then you come back and you're like, hey, I mastered the skill of biking. That isn't quite true, right? And a week goes by and you might need to gain balance all over again because you haven't really mastered it. But once you master a skill, which means, you're biking for 2 weeks and you're running around and you're completely comfortable, you're not going to lose that skill no matter what. And that holds true for our kids 100%. So I always want to reassure parents that, yes, our children will have different obstacles at different ages. And yes, they will react to those with frustration, anxiety, etc., just like we would. They're not going to lose the skills they've mastered.
Well, that's a great gift today. I really appreciate hearing that. We've got so many questions. I want to pop into some of these here for a second. Okay, so I need guidance as to where to go now that we have a diagnosis for my 7-year-old son. We do have school, OT, speech therapy, and social skills, but I feel like I don't even know what resources I should be seeking. We've started to look into CARD, but with recent events, we haven't scheduled a consultation yet. And they say that they are in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah. So you 100% need ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. And it is different from speech and OT. ABA is based on, I mean, it's just a very simple thing. It's so complicated when people are told you need ABA and they're like, well, what is that? So I want to try to simplify it as much as I can. So the concept of ABA is just like tutoring. Just think of it as intensive tutoring, but it's based on operant conditioning, which is kind of a very, very simple part of psychology. And what it says is basically, I want to increase a skill, I'm going to reward it. That's it. I'm going to provoke that skill by prompting, modeling, helping the child. And when they do the skill, I'm going to reward it. And that skill will therefore increase. Okay? That is the basis of ABA. And if I don't want a behavior, like screaming or whatever, what do? I remove reinforcers. I make sure nothing is rewarding that behavior. That's all ABA is. Let's reward the behaviors we want to increase. Let's not reward the behaviors we don't want to increase. We want to decrease. So then the question becomes, what behaviors, right? And that's where becomes a very, very individualized type of program. You really have to establish for each child exactly what skills you want to teach and exactly what challenging behaviors you want to eliminate. This is a 7-year-old child we're talking about here. You would do an assessment, which we've developed one online, and Shannon can speak more to that. And essentially, we're just trying to identify every possible skill that this 7-year-old should be doing at a typical mental age of 7, but is not doing. Now, they could be anything. It could be, adaptive skills like grooming. It could be language skills like joining a group of friends and communicating with them, taking turns. It could be a social skill like knowing how to talk to an adult as opposed to a child. It could be a cognitive skill like how do I plan to do my homework in the future? Whatever it is, across all domains, we list all those skills and we go about teaching them. That's it. And so the more hours, we're going to teach more. And we get to a point where, I'm assuming when a child is only just diagnosed at age 7, that they're relatively high functioning. And all that means is that there are fewer things we need to teach them to get them up to age level. And that's the whole premise, is how much can we teach this child given the amount of time we have?
Yeah. It's like we have a Vulcan mind meld with you today, because I just want everybody to know Dr. Granpeesheh isn't able to see the questions today because she's on the phone. But but you already hit on two things that people wanted to know about. Somebody wrote in and said, my son, 10 years old, he doesn't differentiate adult from child the way he talks. So he tells me to shut up and tells his dad. Also a lot of NES, and they want to know, is there a program for that? And you just mentioned that there is a program for that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk briefly about that, and then I will tell everybody what the free things, because we have somebody else writing in saying, can you talk about the free IBT training this week and about skills? What's free this week?
Yes. Yeah. So the program, I believe, is called Levels of Friendship. If you go in, Shannon will in a moment give you a a phone number and a URL where you can go in and look at Skills. Skills was a technology that we built almost 20 years ago now. And essentially, it's a curriculum, but it really depends very heavily on an assessment. So you initially go in and you answer questions about what your child can and cannot do, and then it establishes a whole series of things to teach. If I believe levels of friendship would be in the social curriculum. There's 8 curriculum areas. Everything from play to cognitive, executive functioning, motor, adaptive, academic, and social, of course, and language, of course. But when you go in the social curriculum, there is a lesson that is specifically intended to teach this particular concept, which is, you might use familiar language with someone who's a friend or the same age, but you're going to use kind of much more formal language with someone who's either an acquaintance or older or a friend of a parent. And we go by levels. And like there's even a difference between your best friend and the next level, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do right now is take a second and tell you guys what the free things that are available on Skills and IBT. But I also want everybody to know that on tomorrow's show, our very special guest on the show, we have a representative from Skills and a representative from IBT. We're really going to be breaking it down tomorrow, and they're going to give you a lot of good information. But because you're asking today, and because we usually talk about this on Ask Dr. Doreen, so there's Skills and there's IBT. And excuse me, every week they offer, in COVID, they offer something that's free of no charge to you because they want to make sure that you're getting good information while you're doing COVID. So this week for ABA parents and guardians, they're offering the free IBT parent e-learning course, Parent School Readiness Skills. I really love this because a lot of you or your children are going back into the actual classroom, and you need to be getting them prepped and ready for that because they've been home for a year in a lot of cases. They also offer something for the educator community. This week, they're offering Educator Impact on the Classroom. That's available to teachers, free, no charge. If you're a parent and want to get that for your child's teacher, you can do that. I'm going to give you a phone number for all of these things in just a second. They're also continuing to offer the RBT 2.0 course on a parent-by-parent basis. You have to be really motivated to do it, but if you will contact them directly with this phone number that I'm going to give you and let them know that it's a 40-hour class, but it's amazing, that will help you to understand what your therapists are doing. It's the first step that someone takes to be certified to be a registered behavior technician. So really encourage parents to do that. They're also offering a 10% discount on all Skills products, which Dr. Grant Piche was just talking about, that assessment. But there's also a behavior intervention plan builder and that entire curriculum. So you can get 10% off. All you need to do is call this number that I'm going to give you, get your pencils ready, and you're going to say you saw it on Autism Live. You can say, I'm friends with Shannon. I want the friends and family discount. Excuse me. So the phone number is 877-975-4559. So again, that's 877-975-4559. But they are going to be on the show tomorrow talking about Skills and IBT. So if you guys have specific questions, let me also say, too, that many of you are writing in. A lot of you are watching us from places outside of the United States. And so the toll-free number is not really something that you can do. Don't worry about that. You can email me. And what I've been doing is forwarding over your requests to them and connecting them to your email. So only for people who are, excuse me, outside the U.S., otherwise, just call the 800 number. It's faster for you if you call the 800 number, but we don't want people who are living in other places around the world to miss out on this. You can email me s.penrod@autism-live.com. I had put it in the chat earlier. I also want to say to that mom with a 7-year-old that's in San Antonio, Texas, we have amazing people in CARD in Texas. And so if you need any help figuring out how you get started, also email me and I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. because I know we have really good resources there. Okay. I'm sending some love to our, we've got a parent that I know and love, and I think you know and love her as well, Dr. Grampy-Shea. And she says, I'm trying to be like Shannon, but I feel like no one is on board from school to ABA. I had hope from you and Dr. Doreen that he could recover, but now we are playing catch up and I am so sad. And I just want to send her a hug. I know, Dr. Grampy-Shea, I've started to notice how hard it is for people that I call that are in the in-between phase. These are people whose kiddos are between the ages of 8 and 14. And I hear from a lot of people that, first of all, at that point, you've got caregiver fatigue that sets in, which is, would happen to anybody, where it's like you're so tired, but also that things start to shift, that you see people starting to say that, instead of doing a comprehensive program, now we're going to do a focus program. I'm hearing from parents, it feels like everybody's giving up on this idea of the promised land. What do you say to a parent who's feeling sad and feels like people aren't on board? Because I assure this parent that I'm there with you. I'm sending you a hug. But what do you say to them, Dr.
Because I can't see the names, or I have no access to the internet right now. I'm wondering if this is the parent who recently shared with me a series of assessments for her child, and this parent wanted me to look at all of these assessments and give some guidance. Maybe the parent can write in and let us know.
Okay.
What I say is this, Shannon. It's extremely difficult. I understand, because first of all,
she says yes. That's her. That is her.
Yeah. So I know who this is. So here's what I want to say. One thing is that I completely understand. This is a lovely parent, by the way. We all love you. Let me just tell you, when I say we, it means everyone at CARD who knows you, because you have been such a dedicated, hardworking, committed mother for so many years. And we love to see that, and we admire that. And I think that, stepping away from the detail, I want you to know that your child is doing extremely well. So that in itself is a major accomplishment. Now, I know that when you're in the kind of nitty gritty and looking at all the detail, there's a lot still left to do. But here's a couple of different things. First of all, Shannon, as most of our viewers will know, unfortunately, at a certain age, we have to discontinue doing these intensive programs just because the payers won't allow it, right? The payers are cutting off earlier and earlier, unfortunately, these days. And I know this parent in particular actually lost funding, and I believe went back and got some funding back, which is wonderful. But what happens is we are limited in time, not only because of the payers, but also because our children are in school now, and we have to add all of the academic burden to their program as well, and it's just too much, right? What happens is it just takes a little bit longer. Don't panic, don't worry. The fact that he's not done at this point doesn't mean that he won't be done. It doesn't mean that he won't get to a point where his life is independent and that he's happy and that he's doing all the things that you wished for him. It's just going to be a little bit longer. And let me tell you, in general, when our kids become teens, they learn in different ways. It's not like, when you're a child and when you're getting 40 hours of ABA, the acquisition rate, what you're learning, the cycle is so fast, right? It's almost like every day you're learning something new. But when you're a little bit older, those things need a little bit, they're more advanced things, first of all. They're more abstract concepts. And they need more time to kind of materialize and stay in your brain and merge with everything else that you've learned so far. It's just a slower process. It's not as fast. It's kind of like, you can memorize the ABCs in a day, but you can't put sentence structure together in a day, right? The more advanced the material, the longer it takes. And that's where he is. And your child has very significant strengths as well. Let's not forget those things, which will help him, and they will come into play when he is older, and they will pull it all together for him. And the other thing, Shannon, that I want to say is this. As parents of even typically developing kids, we start with a vision. And we're like, I want all of my kids to fit into this vision. And let me tell you, I had a lot of visions for my kids too. But, I speak 4 languages. So I wanted my kids to learn at least 3 or 4 languages. Mm-hmm. Do they? No, they don't. My son only speaks English. I wanted my kids all to have some athletic ability and so on. Do they? Not really. So we produce these boxes that we want our kids to fit into, but the truth is the box can have a different shape. It doesn't have to be the shape that you envisioned, but yet the more important things can still come about. And for this parent in particular, this is a very, very intelligent child. He's going to go on and do great things. Whether or not his social behavior is perfect is going to become less of an important factor. And that's just something, that's reality. But what you should fall back on is that you've done a incredible job. And there's nothing that you could have done that you didn't do. You've done an amazing job, and he's going to be great. He's going to have a wonderful life. It's just not going to be exactly the way you envisioned.
It might be better.
It might be better in a lot of ways. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just want you to know that we're sending love to this mom. She says she's literally about to go into surgery, but she's listening to you and crying. So we're sending her love, hoping for good surgery and renewed feeling of being in people's arms, because that's where you are. We're sending you love. Hey, I love this next question. We have a young adult on the spectrum who says, hey, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, quick question. How can you, as a person on the spectrum, handle change? Change makes me anger easily. The breakup of Daft Punk almost made me go into a complete meltdown. What should I do? I so appreciate you sharing that with us and asking that question. Thank you so much. Dr. Granpeesheh?
I love that. And can I just, Shannon, I couldn't hear you. The breakup of what?
Daft Punk. The group Daft Punk announced this week that they're breaking up. Yeah.
So, and I love more than anything when we have individuals on the spectrum calling in and writing in, because this is wonderful. And we learn from you just as, we help you figure things out, but we're also learning from you. So let me just talk about change for a little bit. And this is not just for you, it's for everyone, right? Not just individuals on the spectrum. In general, change produces anxiety. That is the very first thing about change. It doesn't matter what kind of change it is, it produces anxiety. Why? The reason it produces anxiety is that it is unfamiliar, right? So we no longer, when something changes, we no longer know where things are going. It causes us to feel uncertain about things. It makes us feel shaky because everything seems unfamiliar from that point forward. Now, if you understand that, and if you start to try to do a number of different things, which is, deal with the anxiety, and don't worry about the change. The reason you're angry is because there's a certain amount of anxiety there about this particular thing changing. Maybe it was a very calming thing for you. Maybe it was something that made you feel comfortable, familiar, safe, happy. And now you're worried, you're anxious that you will no longer have those feelings or have the ability to feel good. So you got to deal with the core root of the anxiety, not the change. Because if there's one thing in life that's certain, Shannon, it is change is going to happen.
That's right.
So we have to get to the point where we realize every time something changes, it causes anxiety. What is really causing my anxiety? And can I deal with the anxiety itself? So, for example, in this particular case, maybe the individual feels like, oh, I'm never going to have that level of, happiness or comfort that I used to have when I was listening to this group, right? So what happens now is you just think of different ways to reduce the anxiety. The change is just there. You have to think of ways you can calm yourself with the anxiety. Does that make sense, Shannon?
It makes total sense. And I'm sending this person a hug because I think that a lot of people have these feelings about different things. And I remember being a young person and being turned on to Simon and Garfunkel. And they had already broken up by the time I listened to their first album, but I just loved Simon and Garfunkel. And I thought, this is the most amazing thing. And I can't wait to hear more from Simon and Garfunkel. And I'm going to go to their concerts. And then somebody said, they've already broken up. And for 3 days, I was in mourning over it. Yeah. I was 17 years old and I was crying. I was like, well, how can there be no more of this? Yeah. And yet I'm here to tell you, I'm 58 years old. I've been to see Simon and Garfunkel twice in concert, even though they were never, ever, ever going to get back together. They have shortly, right after I was crying about it, they cut a record with my other favorite, James Taylor. You will see that, sometimes things that are supposedly black and white definitive, we're breaking up, aren't necessarily, wait 10 years, there might be more Daft Punk. I know that doesn't help you now. But I look back on that and I go, with age, I have gotten to see that, part of change is that things can change in a good way too. And that things that you lose can come back in lots of different ways. I love a friend of mine said, the whole thing of nature is that nothing is ever in stasis. Everything is constantly changing. Like even a flower, it's a seed and then it's a flower and then the flower dies. Everything is always changing. And she said, the thing is that human beings are the only part of nature that are constantly upset about it and striving for stasis. That we constantly want to keep things the same, and they won't ever be the same. It's hard.
That's right. And I will say, I'll share some stuff with the viewers. So I used to be a complete, massive, one of the biggest fans of Genesis, right? And when I was in my first year at university, I went everywhere I could, and I saw probably, 20 different Genesis concerts back to back in 1 year, right? And of course, that went on. I went to every single concert every year. I did that for a long, long, long time until sometime in the 90s, if I remember, or maybe it was in the 2000s. I would travel to Europe, Shannon, to see their concerts, right? And so finally it became their last year and they stopped. And I was anxious. I was depressed. I was angry. I couldn't believe that this incredible band that I loved for so many years, that their music brought me so much joy, was no longer going to happen, right? So what did I do? I went and I bought like 5 CD sets and DVD sets, and I kept them with me. And I was like, I'm always going to listen to this music and so on. And I was still angry, just like this viewer is. Then I suddenly got introduced through my husband to another band, because now I kind of didn't have the ability to just listen to new songs by Genesis. I had the old songs, which were incredible, and I always enjoyed them. But now I also had this new band, which was slightly different, but in so many ways also fantastic. Of course, now I'm fortunate that I can also travel with him and occasionally see that band. So change has its downside, but as Shannon said, it always sometimes it's through, if you resisted all change, you would never experience something better. Mm. So sometimes what you're going to experience in change is even something that you like more. So allow the universe, allow the world to bring you these new things, because you will enjoy them as well.
Absolutely. I gotta admit, I am loving this next question. Although I'm feeling the stress that it's causing the mom, but this is amazing. My son has taught himself Mandarin Chinese, and I have to say it is hindering his skill acquisition. I feel like he speaks it better than English sometimes. So I hear the anxiety that it's causing this mom, but I'm also hearing how amazing this is, Dr. Granpeesheh. What do you want to say to this mom?
I just love that. Mm-hmm. These are the amazing things that bring me so much joy in this puzzle that we call autism, you know? Yeah. And Shannon, as you know, one of our very dear recovered children also did this, right? The one who's getting or just received his doctorate in robotics. He also taught himself Mandarin Chinese. I think it's brilliant. It's so incredible, and I don't think you should be worried. If you are, just get a speech and language evaluation and make sure that he's not giving up his English. I can guarantee you that he won't. English is a way, way, way less complicated language than Mandarin Chinese. So I think that your child is just, you know, this is kind of like Mozart, you know, and these incredibly special brains of our children, where, yes, it might be that social language isn't up to par, but there are other aspects of his brain that are working in such a superior fashion that he's able to teach himself a whole nother language, and a very complicated one at that. So I think you let it be for a while. If you're really worried, maybe get an evaluation and go from there.
Okay. And then our last question, because we got to go, but somebody said, can I view this as a recording later? Yes. This will be available on all of the sites that we just were live on: YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook Live. But then the best place to find it after today is on our YouTube channel or on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. You will be able to find it. It is available there and will be there in perpetuity, I would say. So I do want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Granpeesheh, who worked so hard to be here with you guys this morning. She, you know, we're talking heavy lifting so that she could be here with you guys this morning. And thank you to your husband as well for helping to make that a possibility.
Helping me calm down and not panic because I couldn't get on the internet. But it was a pleasure, Shannon, and thank you for making it happen. Thank you to our producer, Traven. Yes. I'm always happy to do this, and I'm just so happy we could help some families today.
Absolutely. Such a privilege. And I want to remind everybody that tomorrow on the show, for the first time in a long time, we've got a representative from Skills and a representative from IBT. We're really going to be breaking it down, what they are, because you guys ask a lot of questions about them, and they're going to be telling you more about what's coming from Skills and IBT. We're really looking forward to that. And then on Friday, we're going to win it for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have a research update with the folks from our research team who are going to be breaking down some research for us, and of course in the news. So all of that is still coming up this week. We're out of time. Thank you, Dr. Granpeesheh. Thank you, Traven, and thank you to all of you. It's such a privilege to be here. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Don't go away because we have a special message for you here at the end of the show. But bye-bye for now. Good morning and welcome to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're coming to you live from many places around the country today. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us, as you can see. Good morning, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, everyone.
So excited that it's Wednesday and we get to have her wisdom with us. For those of you who are new to the program, Dr. Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She joins us on Wednesdays whenever she can, and we open up our chat and ask you to write in your thoughts, your questions, your feelings, your concerns Dr. Grant-Pichet has been working in the field of autism for 30 years, and you would never believe it because she looks so fabulous. I think working with young people keeps you young. So we should all go take a job working with young people right now. But anyway, there's so many things that I love about this amazing expert, but just one of them is that she has such vast knowledge from everywhere from working with young babies up through senior citizens. So I know sometimes you guys write in and you go, is this a program for 3-year-olds or is this a program for older individuals on the spectrum? Certainly today we have an expert who can talk to you about everywhere on the spectrum, people who are what is considered high functioning and just need a little bit of support, and those who are greatly impacted. So thrilled that she is here and can help answer these questions for you. We do like to remind you, our disclaimer at the start of the show is there is no expert in this field or any other field that could give individual specific advice in this format. Dr. Grant-Pichet she's not able to have eyes on the situation. It would be a disservice to the individuals that we're talking about for us to pretend otherwise. But please feel free to write in, whether you are the person on the spectrum or it's someone you love, write in and tell us what's going on. Dr. Grant-Pichet will give you the benefit of years and years of experience so that you can go back and ask the right question of the experts who have eyes on the situation. So having said that, I also want you to know that Dr. Grant-Pichet is the founder of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, but also the founder of a wonderful charity organization, Autism Care Today, that's given away, I think it's over $2 million worth of grants at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Grant-Pichet. So, in addition to her work, which has been amazing and changed lives, my life, my son's life included among those, she's found the way to be extremely helpful and supportive in many different ways. So Dr. Grant-Pichet, good morning and welcome.
Thank you so much, Shannon. You always say the kindest things about me, and I love you. Thank you very much. And yeah, ACT has given away somewhere around the 2 million mark, and we're very happy about that, and we're still working hard to do that. Especially during the last year, we've been focused on usually ACT, of course, Autism Care Today gives funding for our children, and we're still doing a lot of that, but our focus over the last year or so, I will say, has been more focused on the family as a whole, and particularly we started just sending out kind of grocery gift cards and just funds for families who had lost their jobs or were having a really hard time with just putting food on the table. So that has been our focus. We also, over the past year, gave out a lot of iPads. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I think more than 50 or so iPads, because we know that there were a lot of children who needed those iPads just to do distance learning or to do some form of telehealth. So, and we're not a big foundation, but we do what we can, and we're very blessed to be able to help families, and I love doing that still.
Amen to that. And I want to say, if you're watching right now and you have cleaned out your couch cushions lately and maybe you have $5 to give, it's a wonderful way to support the autism community. You can make a donation. You can go to act-today.org. So that's act-today.org and make a donation of any size. They are a registered 501c3, so it is a tax-deductible donation. And you can say what you'd like for it to go to, but it is a wonderful way to give back. And I can tell you that when you're in the space and find a way to give back in any way, whether it's your time, your energy, your money, I think it makes the load easier. It's the quickest way I know to get out of a funk. If you're feeling like, nothing ever changes, nothing is ever better. The first thing to do is do something for somebody else, and quickly things start to turn around for you.
So
hey,
true.
I didn't really say at the beginning, but we said we want to know your thoughts, feelings, and questions, and I didn't remind you how you can do that. Right now, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can be writing in on any of those platforms. We're also live on a bunch of other places like Vaughn Live. Welcome to those of you, Africa TV, and many others. We hope that you will write in whatever way is convenient, but I will tell you that those big three, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, are the most, instantaneous. That's the word that I want. We're saying hi to Sam, to Christina, and Yasmin. We're going to get started here with some questions. If you're watching us in podcast, because many of you aren't available to watch us live, we are available wherever you get your podcasts. You can always write in. In fact, some of the questions we're going to start with today are from our live feature on our homepage. It is not interactive. When you write in, don't expect for someone to write you back. We answer the questions here on the show, but that's available 24 hours a day. 6 days a week, 7 days a week. There's 7 days in the week. It's available all the time. I'm just reading what Sam is saying. Hello. Sam, we did not get your, I did not get your email. So if you emailed me something, let's double check. My email is s.penrod@autism-live.com. And I did not get an email from you, Sam. So, feel free to email me again. There it is on the screen, s.penrod@autism-live.com. Now, Dr. Graham-Shea, I got to start with a question today, because so often we talk about on this show, we always say that this show is meant for the larger autism community. That starts with the people on the autism spectrum, of course, but it includes everyone who loves them. And often we hear from parents and caregivers. More and more we hear from the individuals who are on the autism spectrum themselves. Occasionally we hear from a teacher or someone who is working in the field of autism. But there's another category of people that we would love to hear more from. So I want to honor that by starting with a question from a sibling.
Oh, nice.
Because this is a very specific road. And for those of you who are not a sibling, I want you to hear this and imagine if the sibling in your life was saying this, because I want to be supportive. Now, this is from a young person who's still living at home with their sibling, and there is some language in it. I'm going to refrain from saying a language, but give you an idea of what the language is, okay? And I got a plane going overhead, sorry. My brother, 14 years old, has autism and ADHD, as well as some other things that aren't currently important. His special interest is cats. We have a few, and I understand that he likes talking about them, but every single conversation somehow delves into him talking about cats. I'm not being dramatic. You can ask him anything, and his response will somehow be related to cats, delve into the conversation of cats. It's maddening. Earlier today, I was trying to eat breakfast, and he went off on some tangent about cat genetics. I was seriously trying to ignore him, but for whatever reason, it was just on my nerves. I hate that I have to go eat alone so that I can eat peacefully. And I said, word for word, shut up. Nobody cares about cats. It's effing annoying. My parents saw red, and my brother was quiet. We managed to finish breakfast before they said anything, despite the fact that my parents were trying to burn holes into me with their glares. This is their words. I love it. It was, honest to God, the most peaceful breakfast that I ever had. They basically, right? They basically grounded me until they think I've learned my lesson. So I'll probably be grounded until they forget that I'm supposed to be grounded. They're calling me ableist, while ignoring the fact that I'm struggling with him. I don't see why I have to put up with him all the time. I just want to eat with my parents in peace. But of course, that's not allowed because everything has to be comfortable for him. Despite the fact that I thought I was right at the time, they're making me feel guilty, and I'm having a pretty serious internal debate. So I bring my query to you instead. Am I the butthead, I'm saying here, just adding that I've tried asking politely several times in the past, and he just ignores me. My parents also don't care on my feelings. They just want him comfortable, so talking to them is useless. What should I do? I love him, but this is driving me up the wall. Don't you just want to hug this individual?
I just want to hug her so bad. Yeah. So, Shannon, and I know you have a lot of thoughts. Please jump in on this one as well. I want to start out by just making a point of two things. One is you did nothing wrong. You absolutely have the right to say how you feel about it. And I want to talk about that a little bit in a minute. But the second point that I want to make is that your parents do love you just as much, but they're very overwhelmed and lost in what to do for him. And so I think they're just trying to do their best. And when later on, when you're older and have kids of your own, you'll see that a lot of times we think of our parents as all-knowing and they should know better. And honestly, our parents are just people as well, and they're pretty lost as well and trying to do their best. And sometimes they are so overwhelmed that they don't realize that they need to attend also to your needs, because his needs are just so overwhelming for them. So, let's start with, I support you because I feel, not just because over the years, I've always talked to parents about how important it is for them to pay attention to the siblings, because, as a parent myself, we get very lost in the fear of what is going on with my child and how can I accommodate my child on the spectrum and what can I do to give him love and caring and how do I just engulf him with my love. And we forget that there's a sibling in the room who also needs attention and has their own needs and all of that sort of stuff. As well as that, I think, honestly, one of the mistakes we make as parents is that we think we need to allow our kids on the spectrum to behave in any way they want to just because they have a diagnosis. And that's not the case. A lot of times when I talk to parents, I tell them, you should allow the things that you would allow of all your other kids as well. So in other words, have the same rules, because our children on the spectrum will adjust to environmental rules really, really well. And so if your parents were to actually, if everyone in the household were to come to the conclusion that talking about cats excessively is something we want to get rid of or we want to reduce, it would be perfectly fine. It would be a really good thing, that everyone would be able to tell him, this is not the time. We've already talked about cats this much of the day, X amount of time. Now at the dinner table, we're not going to talk about cats anymore. At the dinner table, we're all going to do something else. And that would be a wonderful thing. It would be a great intervention. It would help you. It would help him. Because I can guarantee you, you're probably not the only person who finds his conversation about cats to be a little bit too much. In his social world, he will also need to learn to talk about other things, because others will want to talk about other things. So you did nothing wrong. Please don't feel guilty about that. I think the best way to approach this is to have a calm conversation with your parents and to say, it isn't good for him or me. Explain to them that you're super frustrated and that you also need to have a little bit of peace and you also need to have time with them, which is not focused on him. Just tell them those things. And also tell them, you've been looking into it and you've been asking experts, and it isn't necessarily the right thing for him either, for everyone to allow him to stay on the same subject. Any kind of rumination or repetitive behavior of that type goes against social norms. Social norms dictate that we are able to be flexible and that we pay attention to other people's interests just as much as our own. And I'm sure that's what your parents want for him. They probably just don't know exactly the path to get him there. I'll stop.
And I love all of that. I don't know how old this sibling is, but I want to tell you that if you're 16 or older, there's a television show called Atypical that, especially season 1, is going to make you laugh because it's very parallel to your life. There's a sibling who has a brother on the autism spectrum, and on the show, he's obsessed with penguins, and everything is penguins, and she wants to pull her hair out. So I think that, there's a lot of sexual situations in the show, so I wouldn't recommend it to you if you're under the age of 16, but otherwise, I think, there might be some aspects of it that you would be like, oh, it's not just me. But I love all the things that Dr. Grampiche has said. I think all of us as parents need to be aware of the fact that, we do need, I wasn't lucky enough to have a second child. But I know that for those of you who are, it's a balancing act and trying to figure out. But maybe if because the thing I heard the most in this is that I would like to be able to have breakfast with my parents in peace. And I think that's a reasonable ask, as Dr. Grampiche said. And if it's something that you can't have breakfast, what about asking your mom and saying, once a week or once a month, can just you and I have lunch together? Can we have a lunch date together? Because sometimes parents they want to do something better. They want to do right, but they just don't know how. So if you say, I would like a lunch date, and, if your parents are willing to do as Dr. Grampiche said, which is to say, okay, there's no discussion of cats at the table, or you get to bring up 3 cat things or whatever. If he violates it, that ask your mom, can I get up and go to my room to finish my breakfast? Because I want to get you set up for school in the morning without you wanting to throw things at the wall. But can I also say, I just think you're remarkable that clearly you're a writer. Clearly you have a very funny sense of things, because the way you describe things and them glaring holes through you are going to do well in life, my friend. And all of this that you're experiencing right now and all the emotions, I'm sure that there are people who are watching who are like, oh, I so get it. And that is a gift. And you're going to, I swear, the people that I, have the most affinity with in life, first of all, I just enjoy spending time with folks on the autism spectrum. But I got to say that spending time with siblings, these are the best people on the face of the earth.
I agree.
Right? So I think you're remarkable and are going to do remarkable things, but hopefully you can take some of Dr. Grampiche's advice and start to get this train on track for you, because you matter. And I know you matter to your parents. They probably just, like, as Dr. Grampiche said, they may not know what to do, but you're awesome.
Or they're exhausted. I mean, I want to say one of the things with parents is that parents just become exhausted, parents of kids on the spectrum, and they just kind of want to take the easiest way out, which a lot of times, if you stop, there's also a possibility that if they were to tell your brother not to talk about cats, he might tantrum or get upset, and then your parents would have to deal with it. And they're exhausted. And a lot of times parents will just avoid a situation that will cause extra work because they're exhausted. And it all makes sense. And we just have to, it's like, this is why, Shannon, they say it really does take a village when you're raising a child on the spectrum. It's so much work.
Yeah, but I think if you can watch that Atypical on Netflix, I think that the sister even has this thing with her brother where he starts to talk about penguins, and she holds up 3 fingers, and he gets to say 3 things about penguins, and she's like, "You're done. It's cut off. It's over. You don't get to talk about penguins for the rest of the conversation." And he's a little like, "Oh no, I gave up my 3 penguin things." But you see the relationship between these 2 characters, and I know from interviewing them that they have writers on the staff that were siblings of people on the spectrum. It's based in reality. I think you'll relate to it a lot. But what I love about that is that she has a very different relationship with her sibling than the parents, because of course. but it's a good relationship. And I so loved when you said, I love him, but I'm finding him annoying. You can use these tools and you can have a great relationship with him. Okay, we got a bunch of questions that have come in. So for the person who wrote in and said, I'm now clear, you're the person who wrote, and Dr. Grampiche offered to see your child via telehealth. Do me a favor, email me again so that we make sure. And if that doesn't work, I'll give you a different email, because sometimes things don't come through the spam filter and I don't know why. But let's make sure. Hey, we're saying hi. We've got people from Ireland with us. So we're saying hi to a whole bunch of people. We have somebody named Argentina. I don't know if they're from Argentina, but and they said that they love Atypical. I do too. And we're saying hi to MZ. Okay, I want to start in on some of these questions that are here. So we have the mom with us whose son had the traumatic experience at the dentist. And she has a follow-up question. They have the appointment with a psychologist coming up. They've started some new meds. But her question is, we took a break from Zoom classes since he was having panic attacks and bad anxiety. It's been close to 3 weeks and he's still having them, but I'm concerned that he will regress if we take a really long break. But it was really hard for him to do a few minutes of work with his anxiety. What do you think about us taking a break? And they said, thanks in advance for all of your help.
Sure. I think it's fine. I think you're okay. Don't worry. This mom has been struggling for a long time now, and I think you just should not be too concerned about this right now, because honestly, it's just so much work that you've been putting into it. Don't worry. Let's get him to see a physician first. Let's get him on some anti-anxiety medications. And then when you come back to it, let's make sure that your behavior analyst, your BCBA, knows as much as there is to know about his anxiety and what he's going through, so that they can really try to work towards him overcoming that. As behavior analysts, we never avoid anxiety, but because then you would kind of be rewarding behaviors that are escape behaviors, right? But basically what they would do is they would make sure to take it easy and go slowly and increase reinforcers so that he is able to overcome his anxieties himself. And medication will certainly help. Don't worry, you need the break just as much as he does right now, so just don't worry about it. Our kids don't really, when it comes to things like, a month break, there's not that much regression going on, and you can always go back. Okay, I'm just seeing they're waiting to start a program, so that's fine. You can just go ahead and wait until you get him on medication, and then you can start the program as well.
There you go. And for that, Mom, will you do me a favor and email me and tell me where you are, so that I can kind of keep an eye on you and help you to get started? That would be great. So email me s.penrod@autism-live.com and let me know where it is that you are. That would be awesome sauce. Okay, we've got a parent who says they've got a 5-year-old with ASD working on functional communication, and there is all of a sudden some new aggressive behavior, hitting and pinching, and he is doing that when he is calm, and they're wanting to know what they should be doing about that.
Yeah, so I think,
and I know that person does have an ABA program. Dr.
Great. That's terrific. So what you need to do a new functional behavior assessment and identify why he is hitting and pinching. It's very, very, unless he has pain, I can't think of a reason that he would suddenly start hitting and pinching without having a function. So in other words, there's got to be something that is leading to it, and it could be something as simple as when he hits and pinches, he gets attention. So he potentially wants attention, or he's trying to avoid or escape from a situation, or he really wants access to some object or some activity. So, you know, and I think I know who this mom is now, and
Yep.
you really do need to do an FBA. And
She says they did one. They did one, and they're waiting to hear back.
okay, okay. So we just need to figure out what it is. And he does it only during, if it's only during telehealth, that's a little telling. It indicates that, you know, there's no one there to consecrate it in any way. And by doing that, he's delaying the telehealth instruction. So you still should wait for the results of the FBA, and you should follow up and say, hey, I need the results of this FBA because we need to have a behavior intervention plan. And it really depends on the function of the behavior.
Absolutely. So I love that. And as soon as you know what that is, we'll look forward to hearing that gets better. But I just want to remind for everybody that's there, this is such a foreign concept for anybody who's never done ABA before, Dr. Grant-Pichet, that there's a function for the behavior. It's like an oxygen supply. And, you know, we all do this. This isn't just kids on the spectrum. This was so enlightening to me as a parent when I realized, oh, we're all engaged in behavior all the time that has a paycheck. And sometimes it's just the smallest thing. But, you know, when I'm sitting here doing the show with you guys underneath the desk, sometimes because my hands have to have something to do, I pull my pant legs up and down. It's bizarre. And when we're in the studio, guests look at me like, what are you doing? And I will pull my pant leg up to my knees and then push them down again. And it's bizarre, but hopefully you guys don't notice it on camera. But it's what I do because my hands need something to do. Sometimes I have like couches and things like that, but it starts to be on camera. And so that's not there. But if we really needed me to stop this, if we were in a studio and we were seeing full body, I would need to stop it. But I would have to find some other thing to do with my hands. And if we just tried to stop the behavior without knowing what the paycheck is, we run the risk of doing crazy things that aren't beneficial.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Shannon. No, I don't want to interrupt you, please.
Well, you know, the comparison I always give people is when something's going on with your car and it's making a noise, you don't just start ripping out all the equipment. You do a little bit of an assessment, or you drive it to the mechanic and you say, it's making this noise. And what does the mechanic do? He says, does it do it when the car is on or when the car is off? Does it do it after it's been on for 15 minutes? They ask a bunch of questions, and then they don't start ripping stuff out. They say, can I have the keys? I'm going to drive it around the block and see if I can make it do it. And we submit to that because we don't want them to just pull things out. We want them to assess what the issue is first so that they can fix it. And this FBA that Dr. Grant-Pichet is talking about is exactly that. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to spend time with the child and see, when does the child do it? What are the circumstances they do it with, so that they know before they start pulling things out.
Yeah. So it's really simple. I'm seeing a lot of comments on this. So I'm glad that you started to talk about the functions, because I see a little bit of confusion on the functions. So we should talk about that a little bit. So it's very simple. The functions, usually we talk about the functions and we talk about 4 different functions, but I like to bring it down to just 2 functions: human behavior. Everything we do is to get something or to avoid something. Always. There's just those 2 things. I want to get something or I want to avoid it. Now you take those two intentions and you divide them into 2. So what are some of the things that you want to avoid? You might want to avoid a task, for example. You might want to avoid a situation, like being in a classroom or being on telehealth. You might want to avoid, a demand. So somebody has told you to do something and you want to avoid it, right? And we also refer to that as escape maintained. There's a technical difference between escape and avoid, but you don't need to worry about that. Then there's the other side, which is gaining access. And what are the things we're trying to gain access to? We're essentially trying to gain access to objects, activities, foods, attention. These are all things that we want to get access to. So the first step is figuring out which one is it. And I was reading, I think the mom said, now the things go so fast. She said he does it when he doesn't get what he wants. And so that's a really, really easy, tangible function. That's the easiest one, which is he wants access to something. When he doesn't get it, he has these challenging behaviors, right? Because what he's trying to do is just what we do when we're 2 years old, when we're 3 years old, or when we don't have communication. We're trying to communicate. I'm not really happy about this situation because I really want this thing. Now remember, emotions are not functions, because I know this mom also said, I think it has something to do with anger. He feels angry because he wants access to something he can't have or doesn't get, right? That's not the function. The function is just that he's trying to communicate. Remember, I always tell parents, all challenging behaviors are like language. They're a form of communication. So when I say, what is the function, you have to ask yourself, what would he ask for right now if he could talk typically? What would be the thing that he would communicate? Well, he would communicate, I want this thing and I'm pissed off that I can't have it right now. I'm angry because I can't have this thing. So instead of being able to say that, he's throwing a tantrum and doing all these other things. So what do you do? The treatment for each function is a little bit different, but it all has to do with the concept of do not reward that behavior. So if he's throwing a tantrum because he doesn't get what he wants, great. Make sure he doesn't get what he wants when he throws the tantrum. Let him tantrum. It does not matter. Let him have that challenging behavior. On the side, teach him to either ask for or point to or do some other more appropriate way of telling you he wants that object. Always ignore the challenging behavior or do not give in to it. And also at the same time, you want to teach the child what is the right way to communicate that you want something. And then you reward that. That's the key to ABA, is making sure that you don't increase those challenging behaviors by giving into them, but you model and you prompt appropriate ways of communicating what the individual wants.
And I know that mom says that, for instance, she puts away the dog and he jumps on her and starts biting her. And I just think, if we were able to narrate for the child and say,
Exactly.
the child would be saying, no, I want the dog. Don't put the dog away. That's not what I want you to do right now.
Yeah.
But the thing that's significant for me is what mom said that I think is the crux of all of this is mom says, I'm tired of getting hurt. Been there, done that. And when you are tired of getting hurt, sometimes it's very hard to implement what you're being asked to do because it's going to feel so different than what you've done in the past.
Yes.
And I think it's really important, Mom, that, you circle the wagons, see if you can get somebody to come once the behavior intervention plan is given to you that, I know sometimes you have some help that's there. Ask them to help you to implement this so that you can start it, because it's just so hard to do it on your own when you're tired. And it's not just tired. You're tired and hurt. And that is and when it's your child causing it, you get upside down fast, where you start to, you don't want to tell people because you're afraid of how they'll look at you. You're afraid of how they'll look at your child. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid of your child being judged. It gets really mentally not fun. Yep. It's like a clown car in your head. So You're doing the right thing. You're asking for help. They've done the FBA I would definitely write them today and say, hey, I'm a little bit drowning here and I need some help with this as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I think that that's reasonable.
Let me
Very,
let me
very.
let me also give you some other ideas of things that might be helpful. And I hear you when you write. It breaks my heart because you know it's so much. I remember when my kids were young, and it's so exhausting sometimes. When you just want to like sit on the ground and just cry because you're done. You're just done, and there's no one there to help. And I understand that. And Shannon, as you would say, I want to give you an air hug because I know how hard it is. And I also know I really feel bad because I know that this parent is in the region of one of the areas where we had to close a site due to COVID. So so we have only telehealth services and maybe a few therapists in the area. But I want to give you a couple of ideas and just a couple of pointers for all the parents, I think. One is that when you feel this overwhelmed, it's time to stop trying to fix things, and it's time to take a break from it. And the way you take a break from it is just that you choose your battles a little bit more carefully. You don't necessarily need to deal with this issue right now. Don't put the dog away. Doesn't matter. For take a break and take care of yourself a little bit, because you just need to regain your energy and your own ability to deal with this. Second thing is, if it's an issue of putting the dog away, then do that when someone else is home. Like ask for help. Like, get your husband and say, hey, I'm going to put this thing away right now, and he always tantrums and stuff, and I want to make sure that when I put it away, he's not going to hit or bite me or jump on my back. So I need you to either, and he can do two things, either immediately redirect him to some other activity, or I need you to model for him so that he knows how to ask for the dog back. So that's another thing that you could do, is just deal with this object and putting removing access for this child to this tangible object only when you have someone else there. So that's another thing you can do. The other thing is that, believe it or not, as bad as it is, and if you could get help so that he's not hurting you, our kids very quickly adjust to schedules. So one of the things you could do is you could allow this dog, this toy, a certain amount of time. You could say, you can have access to this thing from, breakfast until lunch, but not after that, or the other way around. It's disappeared, and it's going to come back only when dad is home, or however you want to do it, so that it is not a constant struggle. It sounds to me, just from reading some of the things mom is writing, that there's an idea that the child also has sensory needs, which is why this dog is there to begin with, and they're doing a lot of other sensory activities as well, I saw. And that's great. Sensory activities can sometimes be calming for children, but the bigger issue here is access to this object. And so when taking away access, just know, hey, this is a task. This is when he's going to get violent. This is when he's going to get frustrated and angry. Maybe I should prepare him by giving him exactly a way to ask for it back that's more appropriate. Maybe I should prepare me by having another individual here. And maybe I don't need to do it 5 times a day. I only need to do it once in a while, so that it is not something that until I'm more prepared. Get your own team together. Focus on that. A lot of times as moms, we just, or dads even, but we're alone and we just take on such a huge burden, and it's just overwhelming. And it breaks my heart when I see a parent say, I'm in survival mode. I get it.
Yeah, but I think when you get that results the FBA back, that's going to really help. I got to move on to some other questions because we've got so many coming in. We've got a 4.5-year-old nonverbal. They want to increase joint attention. He's aware of his family and doesn't interact so much, but also has separation anxiety when we're not there. So they want to increase joint attention, 4.5-year-old nonverbal, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Okay, so I don't think that you need to be looking at joint attention right now. I think at 4.5 nonverbal, the priorities should be a little bit different. You just mentioned a lot of stuff here. Separation anxiety is its own thing, which we need to also work on. But, you know, joint attention, I'm not sure if, let's talk about what joint attention is. Joint attention is the ability to be able to share minds and be able to look at an object that you are looking at and read your intention, or the other way around, is to be able to really show you what I'm thinking about by, for instance, looking at an object or pointing to an object, so on, is merging your attention with mine or mine with yours. That's what joint attention is. And it's a little bit of an advanced skill for a 4.5-year-old nonverbal child. So you might be referring to you just want to increase his attention. I don't know. Maybe you can write in and talk to us about that. But if I were to suggest something for you at 4.5 nonverbal, it would be all about teaching communication. My focus would be communication. Like I was saying earlier, when our kids can't communicate, they become frustrated and angry, and they do all kinds of challenging behaviors. So the focus should actually be much more on teaching communication right now. Whether it is verbal or nonverbal, it doesn't matter. A lot of our children who are nonverbal learn to verbalize, learn to vocalize. So I don't know if you've had intervention, not just speech therapy, but both speech and ABA focused on teaching sounds and words and the production of vocalization. If you have, maybe you're in the middle of that and you just continue to develop that into what we call manding and tacting. That means using those utterances to request things, using those vocal utterances to identify things in the environment, etc. And if you have come to the conclusion that vocal communication is not going to happen, then you should really be focusing on non-vocal communication, like a picture exchange communication system, which is iconic communication, icons, pictures, or just keyboarding and typing words. Some form of communication is really where you should be focusing.
Okay. Continue on. Sade wants to know, she's got a 3-year-old in ABA. They have speech OT. They were allocated 24 hours of ABA, but she only sits through about 2.5 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that's around 12 hours, she says. They started ABA in October. They're having it in the home because the child can't wear a mask, so they can't go to the center. And she's asking, she really wants to encourage language in this 3-year-old, that there's some language, but not conversational. So, and this 3-year-old is able to read, yeah. Anyway, October of 2020 is when they started ABA. So, yeah. But they're only getting like 12 hours a week.
Right. So, I mean, I think, you know, and as the founder of CARD, which is also an ABA provider who also lost 1,000 or so behavior technicians during COVID, and is also another provider that has a shortage of therapists, I understand the provider side. But as someone who cares deeply about our kids, and I'm trying to kind of help you and advise you parents, I would say you need to have a really increased number of hours. And I just read that the same parent said the child won't sit through more. If the child won't sit through more, there's something wrong with the ABA. For having started in October, it needs to be fun by now. You've had about 6 months, 5 months, and they need to increase the reinforcers significantly so that your child will sit through more. And you need to call the company that you're with and constantly ask for your other 12 hours. Even 24 is on the low side. And you need to, if they are not able to provide you with people, then you need to either change your provider or actually just even find, this is the way I tell parents to kind of help empower their providers. Find capable young people and refer them to your provider so that your provider can train them. At least this is what we do at CARD. If you're a parent with CARD, please refer anyone who has just finished high school. The only requirement we have is that they must have finished high school. We will do all the rest. We will train these individuals very well and make sure that they are ready to come and work with your child. Keep telling your provider that these cancellations are not working. Everything you wrote in here makes sense. It's terrible when the therapists cancel, when there's a constant influx of new people, they take time to get your child. It's just a constant thing. You don't need a reevaluation. The parent just asked, should I request a reeval? You don't need a reeval. You just need, I assume you have a board certified behavior analyst, the BCBA. The BCBA needs to increase reinforcers and make the activities a little bit more fun, and then gradually increase demands. I hear you. We just need to be kind of squeaky wheels when it comes to our kids.
Absolutely. And I loved, I don't know if you noticed, I was applauding because, a lot of times people, because in fact, we have somebody ask a question about, let me go to it, because Bernadette said something that broke my heart. Bernadette said, we worked with CARD for many years to learn and support a now adult with ASD. Always lost and shocked as to what to say when I hear professionals who speak so negatively about ABA and any advice. And I'm with you, Bernadette, that I hear this all the time, that, all these people will say all these negative things about ABA. And I'm always saying to people, are we talking about quality ABA? Because there is such a difference between quality ABA and the schlocky thing that a lot of people seem to be doing now that they call ABA. And there are many different things that are the hallmark of ABA, but you just heard good ABA, quality ABA. You just heard Dr. Granpeesheh, one of the biggest ones, which is it's not something wrong with the child. If it's not working, it's not wrong with the child. If they're telling you, well, we can't do more ABA because he or she won't sit still, then that is not good quality ABA. That is like, boom, red flag. And it's them, not your child. And if you are ever hearing an ABA provider saying, well, we can't do that because your child can't do that, I would say to you, it's time to have a real heart-to-heart with them, because they're not the right people for your child.
Yeah. And I think the parent just wrote in a very, very good question, which is, what is quality ABA? And we should maybe spend a couple of minutes on that, because I think it's a really important thing for everyone who's listening right now. There's many features to a good quality ABA. It's, on the one hand, you want to make sure that the provider has done training with every single individual. I was shocked the other day to hear that an organization that is led by two individuals who actually used to work for me at CARD, and I thought very highly of them as supervisors, as BCBAs, don't provide training when they hire people. And I was shocked to hear that, because that breaks my heart, because you getting a young person in your home who comes to the parent and says, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. That's not quality. That's a good example of what is wrong. The people coming to your home or working in a center, and that's why we it's one of the reasons we prefer center-based, because our BCBAs are there and they get to see everything. But the key to it is that they should be well trained in the techniques of ABA. So that's one thing. And you have to have a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, or a licensed individual who has a lot of experience in this field, like a licensed MFT or PhD, and they should just have experience in the field. Now, that is one side of it. The other side of it is that those individuals should spend a lot of time with you. So the behavior technicians should be doing an adequate number of hours, which really is different for each child. If you're doing a comprehensive program, which means if you have a young child, a child below the age of, let's say, 6 or 7, then your hours should really be not less than 20. You should be working on a pretty global program. That means you're trying to teach a multitude of different things. So you need 20 to 40 hours a week of therapy. 5 hours is not going to teach your child everything they need. If you're past that age and if you're more focused on one thing or another, let's say you're a teenager and you're focusing on table manners or getting a job, vocational skills or something like that, then you could do, a more focused program, which would be more like 10 or 15 hours, just focus on that one task, one skill. So the hours matter, and also the BCBA hours. So the amount of time the supervisor spends with you, it matters. So the first one was the quality. The second one is the intensity, the hours. The third one is parent training. So you really, the more you know and the more you're involved, the better everything is going to go. And I promise you, it'll just make sense to you a lot more, and you'll be able to catch the therapists and you'll be able to catch the BCBA, and you'll be contributing and you'll feel very empowered because you'll be able to also tell people like, oh, by the way, this, and I saw that, and this hasn't generalized, and how do we do this, and so on. And so you'll be more of a part of the team, and you're the one with the child all the time. So you will be the most important player on that team once you're trained. So that's another really big part of it.
Can I interject there, though, Dr. Grant-Pichet, that it is so essential that parents learn these things, but not to the extent that it's the only thing. Somebody just wrote in and said, I'm currently changing providers because our supervisor said that increasing hours is on, and then added that they are only here to teach us parents ABA. And that is not a hallmark of quality ABA either. So they should not be there just to teach the parents, but they should also be teaching the parents. And any supervisor who says to you that increasing your child's hours isn't going to help your child, like, I would like for them to report that BCBA to the BACB, because that is against all the science that there is.
Yes. There are programs out there that are just for parent training, but if you are in a program that is intended for your child and your child is not making progress, that really has nothing at all to do with we're only here to train parents. That's not correct. That is definitely not correct. So that's that. There are other aspects to another aspect to a quality ABA program is that you have a really, collaborative is the word I'm looking for, or you form a very tight bond and team with your supervisor. That's super important for me. When I was treating patients, I would spend hours just listening to the parents because I want to make sure that I see things from their perspective and that they can understand the way I'm seeing things as well. It has to be a team effort. If there's disagreement between the parent and the supervisor, it's just more tension for you. And it just doesn't work because the supervisor is supposed to be the person that takes your wishes and interprets them into ABA and tells the staff what to do. So you have to have a really good bond there. And that's really, really important. And honestly, I was talking on a whole different subject the other day, and sometimes it's not even about the quality. There are people who are very well trained, but they have their own personal issues that are preventing them from being good clinicians. and they are just not able to sit and listen to you. They become defensive, perhaps, or they want to be the center of attention. There's all kinds of personal things that come into play as well. So I guess those are some of the important things. Hours. Please, Shannon.
I want to squeeze in. I really want to talk about this subject more, but I really want to squeeze in this last question before we go. There's an individual who is now constantly playing with his spit. This is a fireable at a double level 3. He does it when he's bored, while he's playing, after he gets in trouble. It really doesn't matter what he's doing in the day, he will play with it. It's distracting him during bedtime, and it's giving me overload hearing him play with it in his mouth. It makes me want to gag. How do I put this on extinction? He won't chew gum. I give him bubbles and Play-Doh, and it's not working.
Yeah, so that's a really tough one. I don't want to give you a quick fix in 2 minutes just because I don't know if you've done a functional behavior assessment. Like everything else, I remember I had a child who used to spit out and at people, and we always thought that the function of the behavior was that he was trying to get people to leave him alone. So he would spit at them and then they would leave him, right? Because they'd go to wash their face or whatever it was. But it ended up being that after we did an actual experimental functional assessment, analysis, which is a little harder to do, we realized the reason he was doing it was the sensory impact. It was, he liked to see how the spit was going in the air and hitting the person. So it was a completely different function. So I don't really want to give you advice on this because I don't know the function of the behavior. I think you need to get a BCBA again to kind of look at all the antecedents. That means exactly when is it happening throughout the day, and you could start writing these down, and exactly what happens when, what does anyone do when it happens? Is he given gum right after he does that? Is he told not to do it? Whatever the consequences currently, put those in writing, and then let's talk about it next time.
Okay, and she says she is taking the ABC data, so share that with us, Kristen. In the interim, you know how to email me. I do just want to say in parting that the other mom said that the BCBA told me the quality of ABA, fun and enjoying it for my daughter, is more important than the hours she's scheduled for 4 hours a day. But right now we are subbing with a therapist who works. At the end of the day, I agree that it's fun. It's got to be fun. It was that thing we were saying before about it's got to be fun. It's got to be reinforcing, but they've had since October. Come on.
Yeah. And it's very possible to be fun, but also to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at PBS. They've perfected that. Right? PBS knows all about let's make it fun, and then they will learn Sesame Street. I rest my case. Hey, I love all of you. Somebody wrote in, can you please talk about children being affected by the COVID virus and acting differently? That's a whole other episode. We'll have to save that for another time. I'm so sorry we don't have time right now. But I love all of you for participating, even those of you who are just listening and didn't write in. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Grampy-Shea. I love and adore you. Thank you for all the work that you do for our community and for this time. Tomorrow, we are back, and we've got a pediatric dentist who's going to be here with us to talk about dentistry, autism, and COVID, and how we can't let these things slide, and things that you can be doing to help your child with, during this time, so that we don't have dental problems, because that's become an issue. So that will be tomorrow. And on Friday, we have Kurt Manichek back. He does the Smile and Success program for teens, teaching social skills and pre-employment skills. And he's got an online class right now. So if you've got a teenager with some time on their hands, you're definitely going to want to be here for that. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I am here with the fabulous Dr. Doreen Grampy-Shea. She's going to be with us for the next hour answering your questions in real time. It doesn't get better than that, my friends. Good morning, Dr. Grampy-Shea. So thrilled to see you, and you're looking so lovely in your bright spring yellow.
Good morning, Shannon. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in a silly mood today, which is a good place to
Great.
be. Hey, we're saying good morning already to Johanny from Pennsylvania, and we're saying good morning to Sam as well, which brings me to the fact that this show is interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. There's so many ways to interact right now. We are live. I believe I heard this morning that we are live on 18 different platforms, which is kind of crazy to my brain. But I don't know if all that's true, but I do know for sure that we are live right now on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And apparently today we are still live on Periscope. We know that that's going to be ending because Periscope is ending. But those of you who are watching from Periscope, I can see you and I see that you're here. So that's wonderful. Please be prepared, though, to migrate to one of those other platforms. Because we do hear that any day now, Periscope is going to be morphing and shutting down for a little while, morphing into something else. Good morning to Danielle and to Shazman. Shazman, we're so happy to have you here. Danielle, we're happy to have you here too. Danielle is writing in from South Carolina and Shazman is in England. Huma is writing in from Pakistan. We got everybody in the house this morning. This is wonderful. So I also, isn't it great? I want to remind you that we have a homepage. It's autism-live.com. And for a while, the live show wasn't playing on the homepage. It's back. So you can also be watching the live show on the homepage. And here's the other cool thing about when you're on the homepage, autism-live.com. If the show isn't live, you can be looking through all the other shows. We have thousands of shows that we have done here on all kinds of topics. And we've got about 14 different ways that you can search videos and topics by category, by topic, by speaker. You can search by text, whatever you would like to do. If you find you can't find something on the channel, would you please do me a favor and let us know, because we don't always know how you guys look for something. It's all about keywords. Let us know, because if there's a keyword that we haven't put in, we'd love to know and we will add it in. I also want to say that the show is available in podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're a free download. So please check that out and take us on the ride with you. Take us on the walk with you. You can download in some places, like on iTunes, you can download both picture and sound, but in a lot of them, you can just get the audio file and take us on the go. We really like that. So thrilled. And Traven is showing you on the screen, for those of you who are watching the video, some of the different ways that you can connect. But again, wherever you get your podcasts. All right. That was a lot. There's a lot there, but we're excited to be in all those places. Evelyn's got a question for us. She wants to know if we could discuss children that are nonverbal. Some of the children have been affected about COVID-19. Our granddaughter, who was potty trained, went backwards and not using the toilet, asking for help and any suggestions. Yeah. And I didn't get a chance to, I didn't really introduce you, Dr. Gramsci. How remiss am I? So in case you didn't know, I'm silly today. I don't know what my problem is. But Dr. Gramsci is an amazing expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for far more years than you would believe to look at her skin. But she is a true expert in this field. I like to say, because I believe that it's true, and she's won awards to this effect, she's a visionary in this field. She's able, because of her experience, she's able to look at it from all different sides, what it's like for the individual on the spectrum, what it's like for the family, what it's like for people treating them, to help everyone to get to the best amount of progress as effectively and efficiently and as compassionately as possible. So we adore her. I also want to say she's the founder of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And she's the founder of a wonderful charity called Autism Care Today that to date has given out, I believe it's crested $2 million worth of aid and support to families for the things that they need. It's an amazing organization. She's an amazing person and an amazing expert. However, here's the disclaimer. You ready? There is no expert in this field or any that could give individual specific advice in this format. It would be an insult to suggest otherwise to the individual. She doesn't have eyes on the situation. What she can give you, though, if you give her enough information, is the benefit of her vast knowledge, which will help you to go back and ask more and different questions so that you can get to the progress that you deserve and the progress that your loved ones on the autism spectrum deserve. All right, now, Dr. Grant-Boucher, what would you like to say about nonverbal children being affected by COVID and perhaps regressing? We have a grandmother who, grandmother who says her granddaughter was potty trained, has regressed, and is now not using the toilet, and she's looking for help and suggestions.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Shannon. And it's always lovely to be here with you and with our viewers. And it's amazing that we have so many people from around the world. So let's go at it and see what we can do. So first I want to say, I guess I want to acknowledge the fact that COVID has been very, very difficult for all of our families, much more so. I think, obviously, COVID has been difficult for everyone in the world, but I don't think people recognize how difficult it is when you have a child at home with autism and you're dealing with all of the COVID issues. In fact, Shannon, this morning when we were speaking, I was going to suggest that the next article you and I work on should have to do with everything COVID has, how parents are dealing with COVID. And it is almost over, I hope, in most of the world, or start on the decline, but it is very difficult, and I want to acknowledge that. And secondly, though, I want to say to this grandmother, please don't worry, because especially with potty training, there does, with or without COVID, there are phases where potty training will regress or go backwards. It is not uncommon for a child who has been potty trained to decide that they don't want to use the toilet. You have to go back and just redo the potty training procedure. I'm not sure how you taught her in the beginning, not sure how old she is, but you just kind of repeat the procedure. And again, remember, to all of our viewers, when you want to change your behavior, whatever the behavior is, you reward good behavior, right? So you can assist the child, help them, and when they do actually use the toilet, really, really reward them. Now, toilet training, the regression of toilet training and certain other things very strongly suggest the child is trying to exert control. And that might mean that there are other aspects of the child's schedule that have changed, which, you know, COVID would explain that. And they don't like it. And they're trying to exert control over their schedule, over their activities. You know, the whole process of anything having to do with refusing to use the toilet or holding or that kind of stuff has to do with control. So I would say that don't worry, this phase will, you know, like try to get the child's daily schedule, maybe make it visual. Like a lot of times when my children have control issues, I will give them a schedule visually so that they know what's coming during the day. You know, I saw another viewer had written something about anxiety, and I just want to comment that there's so much anxiety that our kids experience, and because of the other symptoms of autism, sort of like they don't communicate, they're isolated, etc., those symptoms of autism tend to overshadow anxiety. But at the same time, I think we have to kind of pay attention to the anxiety issues. Control, when we're trying to exert control, it's always an underlying anxiety about change. And so that's kind of the psychology of it. But in terms of behavior, don't worry. With potty training, it goes back and forth a few times before it stabilizes. So I would go back and just reintroduce the procedures again and reward highly.
Okay, and thank you so much for that. We do have somebody who's written in and said, my son is 6 years old, autistic, and was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 2 weeks ago. He also has anxiety. Is there any resource that I can get for my son? I don't feel comfortable leaving him with anyone but a nurse. Sending her a hug, right? Virtual hugs.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a tough one. I mean, you have a lot of things going on. what I would do is I would probably try to stabilize. I do two things at the same time. I would try to get a team of people to support me, first of all. Like I always say, and I know it's easier said than done, but it's super important if you just get temporary help. If you can get maybe, cousins, brothers, sisters, family members to come in and just assist for a month, let's say. They don't have to be there all the time. They just need to give you a little bit of support so that you're not the only caretaker, right? You kind of try to build your team so that you have some help. I would get the diabetes under control first, and I would make sure that whoever is in my child's life is trained to deal with the diabetes. And that would be my first priority, is to make sure that everyone is able to deal with whatever, if there's injections that need to be given, or if there's something they need to deal with. Should he, have any other type of like a seizure or anything, you just want to make sure everyone is trained to deal with the diabetes. Okay, so that is your primary goal. In terms of anxiety, there's a lot of things you can do to help anxiety. Once I have a plan of action for the diabetes and I start putting that into place, I'll focus on the anxiety. And with anxiety, there's a lot of things. Like, as I said, one of the things is a visual schedule of the day. Now, again, I don't know your child. Sometimes our kids can read. Sometimes our kids are very communicative, so you can just tell them. But a lot of times it's helpful to have a visual schedule. So what that would look like is, for instance, a picture of the child waking up, then a picture of what they want. Let them choose what their breakfast will be. So you can, like, the previous night, the child can choose, tomorrow I'm having this, then put the picture of that breakfast. Then if there's a person coming in the house who's going to work with them, hopefully you are able to get a team of behavior analysts or behavior technicians, or, filling the child's day with various types of teachers or instructors. And you put those pictures in. So, after breakfast, we're going to do 2 hours of this kind of activity. And then we're going to have a snack. And then we're going to have, we're going to go to read something or do class time. Whatever the schedule is, all the way through until they go to bed. And that really, really helps, because then what you do is, every day, as the activities change, you will first go over to the child and kind of point out, and the child will get the idea that if they don't know what's happening, they can go to their little schedule and they can see what the day is going to look like. That's a big anxiety reduction tool, is just letting the child know what's happening that day. There's other things you can do, of course. A lot of times, and again, because I don't know your child, I apologize, it might not relate, but a lot of times our children have anxiety because of their senses and because of sensory input. Shannon, as you know, a lot of our kids have they react to visual sensory input or auditory. Auditory is a big one for children who are terrified of the sound of, let's say, a vacuum cleaner, or they hear things that we don't even hear, like a truck down the street or so on. And this type of continual shattering sounds that are shattering to them might sound very normal to us. And it could be anything, you guys. Like, I remember one of my kids telling me the most prominent sound and disturbing sound to him was doors opening and closing. It could be anything. So sensory input is a very important one, and I would make sure to give my child a quiet area, a quiet zone. For instance, a little corner where you can put a bean bag. Bean bags are great because when the child sits in there, they get kind of a sensory, they feel like they're surrounded, and that gives them a sense of safety. And maybe noise canceling headphones, where they can put those on and just relax in their beanbag, maybe look at a book they want to look at, maybe listen to music that is very calming, that they enjoy. Some area which belongs to the child and is a place where the child can take breaks. And you will use that all the time. Trust me, whenever you see signs of anxiety developing, and the child will start to get to the point where they will use that. They'll just go there on their own. So that's another thing. And then, of course, once you have a little bit of a routine going for the anxiety, now you need to deal with the symptoms of autism, right? And that all has to do with teaching of skills that are delayed. And so that's really when I think if you can get a team of people together who are either trained or will be willing to be trained to work on all the skills that your child might need or not have enough of, be deficient in. And if you are able to have an ABA organization work with your child, great, because they'll provide the team. If you're not, or if you're in a country where that sort of thing doesn't exist yet, then all you have to do is essentially get your team, group of people. You can either ask family members, volunteers, or actually hire students, and they can all get trained. And then, of course, Shannon, this is the opportunity to tell our viewers, our training, all of our training that I developed over the years, many people at CARD developed over the years, are on our website called Institute for Behavioral Training, IBT, what is it? IBT.org, right? Or ibehavioraltraining.org, yeah.
Yes, ibehavioraltraining.org. Don't let me forget, though. I'm gonna give the little the little speech about what is available this week from IBT right now. But don't let me forget that once again, Dr. Granpeesheh, you've started to answer a question that somebody wrote without seeing the question. So don't let me forget to come back to the sensory question.
Okay.
But as Dr. Granpeesheh said, there are two wonderful resources for you, Skills and the Institute for Behavioral Training. Anyone can have access to these things. They are different but separate, and they are great tools. So if you want that training that Dr. Granpeesheh was just talking about, that's from the Institute for Behavioral Training. And if you want curriculum of what to teach, the IBT will tell you how to teach it. Skills will tell you what to teach, and it will also give you some tips, but you really will want to use them in conjunction. I'm going to give you a phone number in just a second where you can call to get a discount. So get your pencil out and get ready. Because first we're going to tell you about the free things that are available this week. So for IBT right now, this week they're offering a module that is Parent Useful Strategies for Your Home. This is such a great training, you guys. I love this training. And it's being offered to you free right now, wherever you are. So get your pencil ready, because I'm going to tell you in a second. For educators this week, this is brilliant. And anybody who has a child who's in school, going back to school, ever is going to be in school, you want to make sure that you connect your educator to this information, because this week they're offering the Educator Behavior Management Training module free of charge. It's Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. So parents, write an email to your teacher right now and say, hey, there's this training for free. I want to connect you to it. Here's what you need to do. And you'll give them the information. Educator Behavior Management. This is the keys to the kingdom, says the former teacher. They are also continuing to offer their Registered Behavior Technician 2.0 training, which is a big training. It's a 40-hour training. They are offering that to parents, but it's on a case-by-case basis. You have to be willing to do that 40-hour course. It's self-directed. You could do it in the amount of time that you want to do it in. It's not like you have to be there on Tuesday at 2:00. But you need to contact them for them. And they are also offering a 10% discount on any Skills product. What do you need to do to get any of these free things or discounts? You need to call 877-975-4559. Say that you heard about it on Autism Live. You can use my name, drop my name, and say, Shannon said to ask for the friends and family discount. That's my little joke. 877-975-4559. Again, 877-975-4559. Now, for many of you, you are watching and you are out of the country. And so that toll-free number may not be of use to you. So what I would like for you to do, if that is the case, and this has been working, it takes a little extra time, there's an extra step, I want you to email me. Email me and say, I would like to be connected to these free trainings, or I'd like the RBT, or whatever it is that you would like. My email, and I'm sure Traven has it up on the screen right now, is s.penrod@autism-live.com. Okay, so s.penrod@autism-live.com. But while Dr. Granpeesheh was offering the last question, she was starting to answer the next question, which she has not seen yet. Somebody wrote in and emailed me and said, "Hi, Dr. Doreen, thank you for all the information you give us. I wonder if skills can also provide programs for behaviors. For instance, my child is scared of the noise of appliances, and he has to take food out of the air fryer straight away when it sounds. Otherwise, he screams and cries also. Unexpected noise from appliances makes him mad. I don't know what to do, and I don't have a BCBA on board at the moment." And she said, "Best regards."
Thank you.
You're like a mind reader.
That's amazing. That happened a couple of weeks ago as well, where I was talking about something that someone had written in on. So I just want to say a couple of things. So skills does have a challenging behavior kind of component or section, which is the CIFA and the BIP builder. So CIFA stands for Cards in Direct Functional Assessment, which, and I've said to our viewers before many times, whenever a challenging behavior occurs and we want to try to figure out why is it happening, you have to identify the function. The function is kind of the reason, like why is the child doing this? And that is the first step in modifying any kind of behavior. Until you know the function of something, you really can't mess with it, because you don't know what the child is trying to accomplish. So there's a section on skills that is the CIFA, and you answer questions about a challenging behavior, and that system helps you figure out what the function is. Once you know the function, you then go to the BIP builder, which is Behavior Intervention Plan Builder, and there you will get ideas of, now that you know what the function is, these are ways you can deal with it. These are the things you do to reduce that behavior, okay? Now, having said that, I don't know that there's anything on there. It'll be an escape maintained behavior. So your child, what your child is doing is their whatever their challenging reaction is. They're screaming, hitting, running away, whatever it is because they're trying to get away from that sound, which is very intrusive, and that's an escape maintained. That means they're trying to escape. And that's why they keep doing that behavior. If they could talk and easily, and were not panicked, they would just say, "That noise freaks me out, Mom. Don't do that thing," whatever it is. So a very, very easy, and normally with escape maintained behaviors, the intervention we do is a little bit different than when there's fear involved. With escape maintained behaviors, what we usually do is we don't allow the child to escape, and we teach them a better way of asking for whatever it was. In your case, I think the easiest thing you should do, honestly, it's very simple. And this is because our kids are sensitive. I'll never forget, I had a little boy who was very, very sweet, compliant, wonderful child. This is when I used to work with him myself. And this was, he was in another country. And he was totally great at school. He was amazing, except about 10 minutes before the end of every class period, he would completely lose it. there was nothing we could do. Excuse me. He just would completely start to act out in class and so on. And we would always then have to leave, take him out of class, because essentially he was disrupting the classroom. After a while, we realized it's because of the bell, the sound of the buzzer, the bell that stops class and you have to go to the next class. He was in, I think, middle school. That's what was disturbing him so much. And he was doing this behavior in order to get away from that sound so that we would take him to the playground before the sound happened, which is unbelievable. So bottom line, what I was going to suggest is, when you want to use this device, this machine, the air cooker, just go over to your son and teach him to put on noise canceling headphones, or to go to another room, and so that you can actually use this thing. Just help him find a functioning way, an adaptive way to avoid that sound. I always tell our parents, some sounds our kids are super, super sensitive to, and you have to help them figure out a way to avoid it. It's really that simple. Like, Shannon, I don't know about you, but there are certain environments that make me crazy. Like, if I am in a busy environment where lots and lots of people, lots and lots of noise, honestly, within like 5 minutes, I need to leave. Like, I get very overloaded with sound and physical space, you know, like if they're in my physical space. So, and what do? I leave. And if I can't leave, I get pretty upset. You told me a story one time about something like this, where I think you were getting like overloaded. And I think either Jem said something to you, like, I think you need to calm down.
Yes, this happens all too often. Viewers know that I am very sensory sensitive. This is one of those areas where I am so with our kiddos. And, honestly, I used to think of it as this horrible, horrible thing that I had going on. And now I think of it as a way that I connect with many of my friends on the autism spectrum and get it. Although they will tell me I'm twice as sensory sensitive as they are, which is hilarious. And often I have people on the spectrum telling me, have you been evaluated, Shannon? Because you have sensory issues more than anybody we know. So whatever. But yes, I mean, I've told the story here on the show about how I was so sensory overloaded in a shoe place where we were trying to get shoes for my son that I literally laid on the floor of the shoe place and said, I'm not going anywhere or doing anything. I threw a tantrum like That's one of our kids. And embarrassed my husband and my son so badly. But it's so funny that my son notices when I'm escalating sensory-wise, and he will say to me, Mom, I think you need to have something to drink. I think you need to have some quiet. I think you need to relax, because he sees me going there. And he sees it more than I do. He recognizes the signs before I do, because I don't know how to go. Still, at this age, sometimes you say to yourself, oh, I need to get out of here. I don't always notice that that's what's going on. I just get uncomfortable and escalate, and then the top goes. Well, so I get it. I remember being at a birthday party with my kiddo and a friend of mine and her son on the autism spectrum. And we were in this ginormous gym where, they have like the foam pit and the kids can be on a trampoline, and there's loud thunka, thunka, thunka music playing. And the ceiling was very high. And I was like this, right? And then they took all of us and they shoved us into this little party room, and they gave all the kids who were in their socks Kool-Aid, like red, sticky, sweet Kool-Aid, and they spilt it everywhere. So now everybody's socks are sticking to the floor. And the music is still wonka, 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 and there's too many people in the room. And her son started to have a meltdown the same time that I started to have a meltdown. And she was like, I don't know what's going on. And that time, because I saw it in him, I said, he and I need to go to the parking lot. You and Jem are okay. You stay here, but he and I need to go to the parking lot for 5 minutes for a cleanse. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, how can you, like, everything is sticky. Everything smells bad. And it's, noise. I just need out. And he and I went to the parking lot for 5 minutes, and then we could come back to the party.
Yeah.
And she thought I was some genius that had seen something. And I was like, no, I feel that way too. Don't you feel that way? So anyway, yes, sensory. Oh, it's a lot. And I think we all have it, like you said, to some degree. But
Absolutely.
I think some of you handle it better than some of us.
Right.
I don't handle it.
Well, and we have to understand that with sensory issues, the child is not, I guess, intentionally acting out. They're just, they're very, very disturbed, and they are more disturbed than they can, their level of disturbance is so high that they can't regulate and control themselves and say, the sound of that thing really bothers me. So just help them find a functional way to avoid it.
Yeah, there you go. It's a lot though. Okay, so I want to go to Sajal says, parent of a 4-year-old using skills, really great tool. Would you recommend someone for therapy in India, specifically in New Delhi?
I unfortunately, I don't know anyone in India, but I thank you very much for using skills, and I'm glad that it's helping you. Shannon, do you have any contacts out there? There are other viewers I know who are in New Delhi, so they might have, and we've often said you can just, if you know other parents, hire people together, and IBT will help get them trained.
I can tell you that we have a large contingent of folks in India who are using skills, and that some of them have asked for and been able to receive some additional support from BCBAs on while using skills, and they're doing exactly what you're saying, Dr. Grampiche, where they've hired people in the family and trained people in the family using IBT. In India, ABA is still really a long way away from where it is in the United States. There are many more OTs in India, and that is more the modality, but more and more people in India are embracing ABA. They're wanting more resources. I just got asked, I don't know about you, but I just got asked to go to India this week. It's COVID, we can't go anywhere. So we don't even entertain it. But I know that it's a place where, as more parents ask for it, I think you're going to see that there will be more providers, but it's underserved, greatly underserved.
Yes.
But many people are making it work with skills and IBT. But I think, if you need more, you can ask for supervision. And I know in certain cases that's been able to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Johanny said, I never thought of emailing the list of free stuff to my kids' teacher. Shannon, that is brilliant. I'm so glad that I can't believe I've never said that to you before. Yes, email those things to your teacher and give them for Teacher Appreciation Week. I used to give teachers, pay for a license at IBT for the training on how to set up their classroom. The one that they're giving for free this week, the behavior management. The other one I love is the one that helps teachers to know how to deal with kids on the spectrum during an emergency. How about a gift you give to your teacher that you also give to yourself, knowing that your teacher has been trained that in a fire drill, or heaven forbid something else, how to help your child, because these sensory issues that we're talking about, imagine when the fire alarm bell goes off and what your child is going through. And if your teacher is trained to know how to effectively intercede, that's some being able to sleep at night. Okay, we're saying good morning to Christina. She's asking specifically about 5-year-old, an early intervention preschool 2 days a week. It is written into his plan to have an AAC device, but it doesn't seem like the school is very interested or that they know what to do, and they're not really encouraging him to do it. Any suggestions about how to help them to be on board with using the AAC device?
Yeah, that's, you have to hold an IEP or an individualized education plan. You have to get the school more committed to this. And honestly, this is one of those things that really annoys me, Shannon, because not only with AAC devices, but all these things that are written in IEPs, oftentimes no one even looks at them, you know, and it just disturbs me because it's the plan for the child. So you just have to be the parent that continually bugs the school and makes sure that they are actually using it. Maybe send reminders, contact the teachers constantly, just say, please, I really need this. I need him to be able to use it. His behaviors are much, much better when he uses the Aug device. Everybody needs to get on board, that sort of stuff. You just have to keep asking them.
And let's be honest, you could gift them a training from IBT about using AAC devices in the classroom. That's something that you can do. I always say you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? And you go in, right, try to give them the training, try to reward them into doing the thing. But if all else fails, the truth of the matter is that, you know, you can start saying this is a legal matter. You're not in compliance. You know, one of the things that I've heard parents say in a letter or loudly publicly is, this is equivalent to you saying that my child can't use their wheelchair, because this is a disability issue and you're denying him his voice by refusing to use this device. Would you do that if my child were in a wheelchair? Sometimes you can shame them into it, but if you can't, like, if you tried all of those things, then you start lawyering up and doing all of that fun stuff. Kimberly says, I have a teenager son that is 17 years old. He's on the spectrum. He gets huge anxiety when he is reminded to do things he already knows how to do. Do you have some advice to help him with his anxiety during this time?
So why don't you write back in, Kimberly, and tell me what behavior you see that you think is anxiety? What does he do when you remind him to do things? Because that's a demand-based type behavior, demand function. Like you are asking him to do something. I want to know how he reacts that you think it's anxiety, and then we'll talk about it.
Can I also ask too, if he already knows how to do it, why are we reminding him to do it? Did he forget to do it, or because I know, you know, I have a 17-year-old, and when I remind him to do something that he was going to do, he does not like it. I wouldn't say that it causes anxiety. I would tell you that it ticks him off. But I also have 17-year-old nephews that are not on the spectrum, and they are the exact same way.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that typical 2-year-old thing when the typical 2-year-old says, I do it myself. And they're so furious. I do it myself when you're trying to do something for them. And they're like, get back.
And what is that? That's control. And that's kind of what I was talking about before, is that a lot of times one of the things that really disturbs our kids, and particularly all teens, is they want control. They want control of their own decisions, their life, etc.
But isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that what's supposed to happen? Isn't that one of those things that it's like, boy, they're right on schedule? If at 17 they're wanting to lead their own life, you know, that's the good news. I think for me, the scary part is, have I given him enough things? Does he know enough that he can? Yeah. And I try to focus my energy there. I don't know. In the meantime, Felix says, hello, my 10-year-old with autism gets very upset. He says his voice sounds like a girl and that there's something in his voice. He gets so upset he hits himself, and we try putting him in front of a mirror, and there's more, let me find it, and asking him what he sees, and he says a boy. So I don't understand why he keeps saying he sounds like a girl. This has been going on for many months, and we don't know what to do. He sometimes won't speak and will just point or use his head to answer yes or no. What can we do? We are waiting on card services to finish our process with insurance to see when we can start services. We are in New Jersey. Oh, bless you, bless you, bless you. Dr. Granpeesheh?
Yeah, a couple of different comments, Felix, and also if you're waiting on card services, Shannon, we should probably try to get with their care coordinator and see if we can expedite that.
Yeah.
But that aside, a lot of times our kids don't actually understand boy and girl. It's a very strange thing, but that's been published over and over again. In fact, my master's thesis was also on a similar concept. So I wouldn't put too much into that he says his voice sounds like a girl. I would try to, let's not, what I would suggest you do, and I have an intuitive feeling about this, but I don't know your child, so I'm going to take a risk and kind of give you my intuition about it. But also, before I do that, I really want to suggest that you go on, do what we just suggested, which is go on the CIFA, the Indirect Functional Assessment, which you can find on Skills website, and answer those questions about his behavior and help it. Let's see if it can help you identify the function. My feeling is it's an attention maintained function, which basically means that you are very worried when he says this or when he does these things. And so there's a lot of attention given to try to get him to speak, to, whatever it is. And so he is starting to realize that I'm going to get a lot of attention for this if I just, I'm not going to speak. I'm going to say that my voice bothers me, that sort of thing. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Again, you can never address a behavior until you know the function. It could very well be that there's something in his voice that is disturbing him, or it sounds odd to him, or it has changed. I mean, there's so many things that I would go through. Sometimes one of my kids years ago suddenly started having reaction to all kinds of sounds, and we couldn't figure out why, because he'd never had that reaction before. And we found out he had, his ears were clogged because of some illness that he had had before. And so everything sounded muffled. And he, he couldn't express to us what that is. He didn't know the word, oh, it sounds muffled. Maybe my ears are clogged. He just didn't know what's going on. So he started getting scared and he started overreacting to it. And everybody attended to him when he overreacted to it. And so that became a habit. That became a pattern of behavior. So you really need to kind of look into all of those things. Like, has anything changed in his environment? Is he hearing things a little differently? Can you help him? First of all, I really wouldn't coddle or give a lot of attention when he says things like my voice sounds like a girl. I would just kind of move forward and just keep going through life and doing the things you do, and not even address that until you find out what the function is, because I would hate for you to be giving too much attention to it right now without knowing what is really going on here. The other thing is, maybe you can have him play with his voice. One way that we play with our voices is singing. Right? So we control our voice and we sing, and we do all kinds of stuff with our voices. So you can make a deep voice, a high voice, that kind of thing. So maybe and don't do it when he's complaining. Do it at a different time where you just teach him an activity that involves manipulating his voice. Because if it is something where he is fearful, that activity will give him a sense of control over it, right? I can actually control my voice. I can control how it sounds, how it comes out. So those are some ideas, but I really do want to suggest that you kind of understand the function a little bit before we do anything.
Dr. Gramsci, there are a bunch of apps right now where kids can play with their voice and modulate it. And would that be something that they could do?
Absolutely. Just be careful, because I remember with a lot of kids, when they get on the apps and they like how it sounds, like it will sound robotic or it'll sound, whatever, then they kind of get hooked on that. And then they start doing a lot of that. So just.
Okay, so maybe be careful. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions and not a lot of time here, but I want to say, because I mentioned that you can get BCBA support with alongside IBT and skills. They're asking, can they get card BCBA support with IBT and skills, for instance, in India? And we also have people writing in saying that same thing in England. They have so few ABA resources, and if you want it, you have to pay for it out of pocket. I don't know if IBT and skills are doing that right now, offering skills support overseas. Do you know, Dr. Grampiche?
I think skills I'm not sure, but I think skills has some level of support. I'm pretty sure CARD is not. When I was running CARD, I always had a team of people who were doing international services. I felt it was really important for us to be able to help just this kind of activity, kind of getting on Zoom and that sort of thing. But I don't think it's happening right now. We can certainly find out for you and let you know, but I don't think there is anyone who is providing BCBA support.
And if you email me, because you're in India, email me s.penrod@autism-live.com with that question. I will forward it to the skills people and we will look into it for you. How's that? Somebody says, my son started ABA 3 years ago. Can I ask for a copy of his full report for those 3 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Any provider should be able to give you everything that they've done for your child for the past 3 years.
Okay. Okay, going back to the 17-year-old who feels anxiety, and you had asked for them to tell you what it looks like for anxiety. She said he's arguing under his breath. He gets close to a meltdown and can be in a safe. I'm not sure what that means. But she also said, I asked the question, why are we reminding him of something that he already knows how to do? And she gave a great example. Thank you. He's in a class and arguing with the instructor with what she's teaching him. Totally get that.
So this is a great example. I'm so glad that we went through this experience here, because oftentimes we see a challenging behavior and we will assume that it is anxiety or that it is something out of the control of the child or something that we need to, take better care of the child. I am not really seeing this as an expression of anxiety. What I'm seeing this as is his attempt to tell you or his teacher that he doesn't want to do what he was just being told to do. And sometimes our children are very smart and we forget that the smarter they are, the more able they are to manipulate the people around them. So whenever I see a child who is able to manipulate people, I'm very happy because I know that child is very intelligent and is figuring out ways to get people to leave him alone. And that's what he's doing. What he has done here is he will argue under his breath, or he'll have whatever other reaction that notice you're worried about. And I'm guessing so when if you ask me to do something and I start just mumbling, what's happening is that I'm delaying having to do that thing, right? And now I don't know if anyone actually follows through and gets him to do that thing, or does he just avoid doing it by doing this kind of arguing under his breath thing, right? Even if you follow through and make him do it, there's a delay. So he gets this period of delaying what you just asked him to do. And so the way to deal with this is to completely not allow him to delay that thing you were reminding him to do. Great, we do follow through. Perfect. Do it immediately. So when you ask him to do something, and as soon as he begins, don't address the arguing at all. Don't even talk about it. Just prompt him through the activity faster. Like, for instance, if you ask him to do something, maybe maybe set a timer at the same time that you're asking. And if he starts arguing, the timer he'll run out of time. And that is not a good thing. I remember, when kids are really young, Shannon, you know how you say to them, I'm gonna, please go put your shoes away, and then you just start counting. 1, 2. There's no, consequence established, but they panic and they immediately get it done. Timer does the same thing. Even if there's no, we haven't even said to him, you need to do this before the timer runs out. But our kids figure that out very quickly, and they stop doing all those delay tactics, and they actually get the thing done, and then that habit is gone. So try that. I want to say, please come back and talk to us, because if there is underlying anxiety, the timer might actually increase the anxiety. So I want to make sure that it works. And if it starts, and again, there's this other thing called extinction bursts, which I need to talk about. Whenever a child is doing something and it's been working for a while, and now you're not letting him get away with it anymore, they might get worse before they get better. So they will get he might argue more or louder, and then he'll realize, oh no, my timer went off, and when my timer goes off, they're gonna take something away from me, or whatever it is. Then they actually fall into place. But initially, the behavior gets worse before it gets better. I just want you to know that. And I just read the parent said, I like that idea. So I'm glad we're going to give it a shot.
And I hope you can see all the people who've written in and said thank you for addressing their questions, because there are so many of them. Somebody wrote, greetings, my child is 3 years, 6 months old, and recently he's so dependent when eating. He dislikes using his hands.
I wish we could know a little bit more about how he is using his hands to eat. Does that mean he's not using utensils? Or maybe if the parent could explain a little bit about that.
This was somebody who wrote in on the live feature, so I'm not sure that they're still watching. But let's move on to another one and let's see if they write in. But somebody else wrote, I really need help with my 2-year-old son. My doctor believes that my son has autism. My son is so hard to deal with. What do I need to do differently to make my son behave?
Oh, if your child is 2 years old, please get with a really good, high quality ABA provider now. First of all, you will need your doctor to give you the diagnosis one way or another. If they think it's autism, they need to write it down. And they need to recommend applied behavior analysis, ABA, applied behavior analysis. And so then, with that in hand, you call your insurance company, if you're in the US, and you say, I want an ABA program, and they will refer you to a whole bunch of people, a bunch of different providers. You can also go online and look. I would love to get a chance at seeing your child, treating your child. In fact, yesterday I was able to get CARD leadership to agree that we will do an early intervention clinic in one of the states, just so that I can. A lot of our parents here don't know that I am in the middle of doing a study to prove once again that children with autism, some children with autism, can actually recover and lose all their symptoms. So I am taking in 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and doing very, very intensive programs with them. We have now decided at CARD that we will open a clinic that is only dedicated to that, to early intervention, intensive early intervention. And, if your child's 2 and you're in the US, contact CARD and ask to be put in touch with either me or Evelyn Kung, who is the clinical director, because she and I and a couple of other very senior supervisors at CARD will be overseeing this group of children. I don't want the rest of the families here to be upset or sad about it. It's just that it is a lot easier when it's a 2-year-old. You're dealing with a child who's just developing symptoms, so it's much easier to reverse those behaviors, and you have a lot of time. And insurance companies, payers, usually will fund early intervention.
Okay, and so I just want to say to folks, if you would like to, you can email me and I will make sure that you get connected if you feel that you're in this category. s.penrod@autism-live.com. But I also do want to let people know you can go to centerforautism.com. There is a button on the website and you can click enroll and you can start the process. They will pretty immediately, it's an automated thing where they will pretty immediately, ask you some questions about, do you have a diagnosis? They will ask for insurance cards to see if your insurance will take CARD, and that's absolutely a way to go once you get started. But if you want specifically if you're interested in this other program, and if you would like, email me. And for our family that said, we kind of glossed over that before, the family who said that they're waiting to start in New Jersey, I would appreciate it if you would send me an email, s.penrod@autism-live.com. I don't talk about it here on the show, but I also head up the area of CARD that does orientations for new families. So I very much, if you're new to CARD, it's very important that I would love for you to get connected, certainly not just to me, but to a whole team of people that we have working, because so many of you said we'd like a kinder, gentler entry into CARD, and we're trying to make that happen for you. That's something very near and dear to my heart, because I remember what it was like getting started. It's hard, and we want to make it a little bit easier. We're out of time, but Dr. Grampiche, I just want to say how much we appreciate you and the time that you spent and the care and the love that you show to our kiddos and to us and to our families. It's palpable, and the respect that you give all of us and for what we're feeling and what we're going through. It's just so very appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love you, and I love doing this with the families, and I appreciate everybody joining us for this hour.
Well, we appreciate you because we know how valuable your time is. I want to remind everybody, we're back tomorrow on the show live. We've got a special guest who's showing us a new app that's called Gomanda, and I can't wait for them to reveal that to us. And then on Friday, we have Vince Redmond, licensed marriage and family therapist, who's going to join Nancy Allspaw Jackson and myself for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. If you have questions that you feel would be better served by being answered by an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist, go ahead and send me questions for Vince at any point. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to say to you, please give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. But please stay tuned. We have a message about how you can be helping more people to know about Autism Live. But bye-bye for now. Goodbye, Dr. Grampiche.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.